In that dark hour, the Rose Clan's lands were engulfed in flames of battle, and the bodies of valiant defenders littered the once peaceful grounds of the family estate. The last warrior among the living was the young heir of the family, who continued to fight the enemy to the last drop of his strength. The glorious Ragnar clan has been considered the great ducal family of the empire for centuries, with its holdings stretching across the harshest northern lands of the continent. Thanks to their extraordinary physical strength and endurance, the Ragnar clan has reliably defended the Great Northern Wall for 1,000 years. Ancient legends tell a fascinating story of how the clan's incredible abilities originated from the mighty dragons of antiquity. The heirs of the great Ragnar family were born with an amazing gift for magical arts, incredible strength of spirit, and talent for fencing. Among all the representatives of the renowned clan, only the main character did not inherit the family's abilities, which is why he was unable to withstand the sudden attack. The protagonist's opponent calmly pointed out his inability to achieve the desired level of mastery due to the lack of the innate gift of the Ragnar clan. The warrior who removed the bandage said that he felt deep sympathy for the unenviable fate of young Master Theo. Theo's shock knew no bounds when he recognized his opponent as his own mentor, Randall, and a thirst to understand the reasons for the betrayal filled his mind. The mentor spoke indifferently of his fatigue from watching Theo's fruitless morning training, lacking a natural gift. The young man's endless efforts yielded no results, turning his persistent training into a pathetic and meaningless spectacle. Randall considered the nickname Ragnar the Worthless quite appropriate for a young man who should have hidden from human eyes due to his lack of talent. Theo's anger filled him as he realized that all his years of training and fencing under Randall had been just part of a treacherous plot. Instead of answering the question, the teacher struck again with his sword and placed all responsibility for what was happening on Theo himself. Randall lifted the fallen Theo's head so that he could see the ruined Rose Palace, and realized that his family's death was only due to his weakness. Theo's mother's lifeless body was thrown at his feet, and his attendants cruelly reminded him that her death was the result of his failure to protect his family. The tragedy of a clan built on strength and power was the emergence of the weakest heir in the entire history of the great Ragnar family. A final spark of rage flared in Theo's heart, causing him to gather his remaining strength and grab his sword for a decisive blow against the traitor. The sudden appearance of the mysterious stranger saved Randall's life when his sword managed to stop Theo's attack at the last moment of the battle. Randall apologized to his master for being too talkative, promising to quickly complete the business he had started with the defeated heir. Theo's fading consciousness was filled with bitterness from the realization of his complete defeat and inability to defend his home palace from the invaders. The dying. Theo's thoughts were filled with regret for his own weakness, since the presence of a family gift could have prevented the tragedy that had occurred. Fate took an unexpected turn when, instead of death, a mysterious message appeared before Theo's eyes about returning to the past. Reality changed instantly, and Theo found himself back on the training ground with his teacher Randall, who had decided to end the lesson. Theo's confused gaze wandered around the world, trying to understand what was happening, because he clearly remembered his recent death. Theo assumed he was seeing the last of his dying memories, disgusted that the first image he saw was that of the traitor Randall. The sudden appearance of the system window before Theo's eyes completely changed his perception of the events taking place. The system's first training task required Theo to deliver a direct punch to the face of his mentor, Randall. Theo found himself confused as he saw a strange sign that only he could see in his previous memories. A sudden thought struck Theo. Perhaps higher powers had granted him one last chance to take revenge on the traitor before his final departure from this world. Even if what was happening was a death wish, Theo swung his weapon resolutely, intending to teach his former mentor a harsh lesson. After successfully landing a blow to Randall's face, Theo was struck by the vivid sensations of what was happening, although he was surprised by the unexpected weakness of his own blow. An enraged Randall threw the student aside and sternly reminded him that the training was over, warning him against any further attempts at attack. Confused, Theo could find no explanation for the physical pain he was experiencing, as it did not fit in with his idea of a deathbed vision. Randall calmly attributed the student's strange behavior to the stress before the awakening ceremony, noting the lack of progress in training. The words about the awakening ceremony echoed in the hero's mind as the teacher expressed dissatisfaction with the student's unacceptable behavior. Randall emphasized an important rule of the Ragnar clan. A representative of a great family must use a noble sword in battle, and not simple fists. As he left the training grounds, Randall warned Theo of the upcoming punishment at the next lesson for misbehavior. The other students openly mocked the untalented Theo, who tried to blame the teacher for his own inability to master martial arts. The students were filled with doubts about Theo's belonging to the great Ragnar clan, because even for an illegitimate heir, he demonstrated an unacceptably low level of abilities. Observers noted Theo's maximum effort when delivering the blow, but even this concentration of all his abilities was not enough to harm his mentor. A sudden revelation came to Theo when he scooped up some sand and became aware of the full range of his tactile sensations, including a clear perception of the objects around him. Rising from the ground, Theo came to an unexpected realization. The reality surrounding him was not a deathbed vision, but was real. Memories of the awakening ceremony that had taken place 10 years earlier pointed to the incredible return of 17-year-old Theo to the past, contrary to all logic. A new system notification interrupted Theo's thoughts, congratulating him on successfully completing the training task and promising the awakening of the Ragnar's hereditary gift. The immediate acceptance of the reward caused Theo's body to glow with a bright light, signaling a rapid increase in all of his physical and magical attributes. The intensity of the light emanating from Theo rapidly increased, covering not only the training ground, but also a significant area around the confused air. Randall, meanwhile, had a frank conversation with Theo's mother, acknowledging the young man's unprecedented lack of talent and explaining his decision to become his mentor. Confident in his teaching abilities, Randall promised to provide Theo with sufficient preparation for the awakening ceremony within the next 5 months. A genuine joy lit up the face of Lady Cecilia Ragnar, ruler of the Palace of Roses, who completely trusted the tutor's abilities in teaching her only son. The generous reward accompanied the mother's request for enhanced training for Theo, whose obvious weakness required additional attention from an experienced mentor. In accepting the payment, Randall assured Cecilia of round-the-clock training for Theo, although the mother herself, driven by maternal faith, did not feel any concern for her son's future. Leaving the office and counting the reward he had received, Randall reflected on Cecilia's naivety in not realizing the complete futility of teaching such an untalented student. Theo's lowly origins, from a common concubine, explained his innate weakness, which perfectly suited the secret plans of his insidious mentor. The anticipation of a generous reward and the prestigious title of teacher of the heir of the Ragnar clan filled Randall's soul with joyful excitement. A generous reward and the promise of a happy future awaited Randall for providing information about Theo and hindering the development of the young heir's abilities. A sudden noise drew Randall's attention to the figure of Theo, hurrying somewhere and running past him. Randall's disdainful gaze followed Theo as he passed by indifferently, causing the mentor to feel another wave of disgust towards the worthless student. Theo's rapid run brought him straight into the arms of his mother, who assumed that her son was simply tired after a grueling workout and had come seeking comfort. Unexpected sobs shook Theo's body as he clung to his mother, but the young man did not explain the reason for his tears, rejoicing at the opportunity to see his living parent again. A firm determination to change the tragic future was strengthened in Theo's mind as he analyzed the events of his past existence. Despite his current weakness and lack of achievements other than a noble name, Theo believed in the possibility of developing the power promised by the mysterious system. Growing confidence that he had acquired sufficient power to win the coming struggle for the throne filled Theo's heart with determination. The thirst for just retribution against the traitor for the atrocities he had committed strengthened the fighting spirit of the young heir of the Ragnar clan. A new system notification instructed Theo to push his physical training to its maximum level. Immediately taking up intense jogging on the training field, Theo felt the burning desire for revenge against Randall giving him additional strength. The awareness of his current physical weakness forced Theo to focus on developing his own strength first before carrying out his plans for revenge. Past experience in the intelligence agency known as Black Snow suddenly acquired unexpected value for the implementation of new plans. Memories of the powerful potion Emperor's Blood Sword surfaced in Theo's mind as the key to significantly enhancing his physical capabilities. The true significance of the secret potion was to be revealed only in the future, according to the secret instructions of the ancient masters. Resuming his previously abandoned extreme training has taken on new meaning for the transformed heir of the Ragnar clan. The discovery of the Ragnar's long-awaited talent imbued Theo's training with deep meaning and purpose. Reaching 27% progress on the training task confirmed the truth of the system messages and inspired further achievements. The astonished students watched Theo's continuous run, amazed by the sudden appearance of unprecedented endurance in their formerly weakest comrade. The awakened talent of the Ragnar clan granted Theo incredible endurance, allowing him to overcome previously unattainable physical challenges. The newfound strength allowed Theo to perform sword exercises with previously unimaginable intensity and duration. The rapid increase in progress to 85% strengthened Theo's confidence in the possibility of achieving true power. The following days were entirely devoted to continuous training, which took place both during the day and at night. Theo's diligent training was closely monitored by the training ground manager, Evelina. Evelina closely watched Theo's continuous training, which had been going on for several days without rest, which completely contradicted his reputation among the other Ragnars. The boy's appearance and tenacity were completely at odds with the widespread belief that he was incapable of learning and had no talent for martial arts. Theo continued to train diligently with the sword, despite extreme fatigue and exhaustion, because the progress indicator already showed 97% of the required result. Last night, fatigue took hold of the training guy's body so much that he collapsed to the ground immediately after reaching the 90% mark. Unexpectedly for Theo, the progress rate began to gradually decline during his short rest, which forced the guy to immediately get up and continue training. A mysterious system window constantly motivated the young warrior to continue training without stopping until the task was fully completed. The last remaining percent of progress required additional effort from Theo, but the determined guy was determined to see the job through to the end. The system window finally congratulated Theo on successfully completing the task, after which the exhausted guy was able to stop the grueling training. The young warrior's body was so exhausted by long training that he lost consciousness right on the training ground without having time to see the improvements he had received. Gathering his last strength, Theo pressed the reward acceptance button in the system window that appeared with a trembling hand before finally falling into unconsciousness. Evelina witnessed an amazing phenomenon. Theo's body began to emit a bright glow, and a powerful vortex of energy formed around him. Waking up the next morning in an unfamiliar room, Theo looked around warily, trying to figure out where he was and how he got there. Evelina came in to greet Theo, who had woken up, and told him that after losing consciousness, she had carried him to the restroom of the 4th training ground. Recognizing the woman who entered, Theo immediately greeted the training ground manager with due respect and gratitude for the assistance provided. Lighting a cigarette, Evelina calmly explained to the guy that she had found him unconscious during her morning rounds and decided to take care of him. Before leaving, a grateful Theo received a glass of cool water from caring Evelina, which helped him regain his strength after a grueling workout. Evelina decided to ask Theo directly about opening the Manhwa halls before the official awakening ceremony, which was strictly prohibited by the rules of the Ragnar clan. Well aware of the prohibition and the severity of the punishment for breaking it, Theo thought hard about the manager's unexpected question. Evelina explained her interest by saying that immediately before losing consciousness, Theo's body emitted a characteristic wave of mana that occurs when the chambers are opened. Evelina's stern gaze demanded an honest answer from Theo about the possible violation of the clan's important prohibition on the premature opening of the mana chambers. Theo sincerely considered the woman's assumptions absurd, since the premature opening of the mana chamber would inevitably lead to his death. Suddenly, Theo remembered the reward he had received the day before: the awakening of the dragon's heart and the additional bonus of magical power accumulated over 10 years. A special mana chamber called the Dragon's Heart was intended to be placed directly within the dragon's heart of the owner of this unique ability. Placing the mana hall in the dragon's heart greatly increased the efficiency of magical energy use compared to its normal placement. Ordinary people were forced to place mana chambers in the lower abdomen, since the human heart could not withstand the powerful magical energy. Every warrior from the Ragnar clan dreamed of obtaining a dragon's heart, as it gave the opportunity to quickly gain incredible magical power. Theo realized the incredible value of the rewards he received for completing strange tasks, as he managed to overcome the limitations of the human body. Evelina's worried expression clearly showed that the rewards he had received had put Theo in an extremely difficult and dangerous position. Evelina earned respect as the former commander of the elite dragon riders, but after losing her arm, she became the manager of the training grounds. Evelina's fighting skills and strength commanded respect even from the mighty demonic dragon, demonstrating the woman's exceptional skill. Evelina was famous for her integrity and fairness, never making distinctions between people based on their status or strength. Evelina's unwavering commitment to the principles of justice led to her being refused the appointment of her as the young Theo's personal tutor. Theo knew that the discovery of the mana chamber in his dragon heart would inevitably lead to immediate execution, despite his clan affiliation. Theo seriously asked Evelina about her willingness to take responsibility for an accusation based on only a fleeting sensation of magical energy. Theo's direct question about the consequences of unfounded accusations made Evelina question her confidence in the correctness of her suspicions. Theo decided to use Evelina's well-known fairness and integrity as a way to defend himself against possible unfounded accusations. Theo reminded Evelina of his affiliation with the Ragnar family and the possible consequences of false accusations of violating the clan's sacred traditions. Theo pointed out the severity of the punishment for unjustly insulting a member of the Ragnar clan, which made Evelina doubt the sufficiency of her evidence. Evelina had never seen such determination in Theo's behavior before, but she remained confident in her senses of the wave of mana emanating from him. Evelina apologized to Theo for her suspicions, but decided to test her assumptions, since the clan rules were the same for all its members. Despite all her efforts, Evelina was unable to detect any signs of a mana palace in the boy's body, which contradicted her previous feelings. Confident in his safety, Theo calmly asked if Evelina was ready to admit that her suspicions of committing a serious crime were wrong. Realizing she was wrong, Evelina knelt before Theo and asked for immediate execution for falsely accusing a representative of the Ragnar clan. Theo watched Evelina's remorse with a smile, knowing full well that she had been unable to locate the special mana chamber called the Dragon's Heart. The uniqueness of the Dragon's Heart allowed Theo to completely control the manifestation of magical energy and hide its presence from outsiders. Theo was aware of his safety, since the possibility of a Dragon's Heart existing in a human would only become known in a few years. Theo generously forgave Evelina, explaining his decision by his understanding of her desire to conscientiously fulfill her duties as manager. Evelina's courage in risking to demand the truth from a representative of the powerful Ragnar clan earned the young warrior's sincere respect. Theo understood the value of his accidentally gained influence over one of the strongest warriors, who now felt indebted to young Ragnar. Before leaving, Theo explained the true reason for the ban on early opening of the mana chambers, which was related to the risk of an uncontrolled energy overflow. Evelina's concern about the possibility of mana overflow even in Ragnar, who was considered untalented, sincerely touched and pleased the young warrior. After Theo left, a confused Evelina looked for a long time after the guy's retreating figure, trying to comprehend the strange situation that had occurred between them. As Theo walked through the corridors, he reflected on his incredible good fortune in receiving the Dragon's Heart and the magical energy accumulated over 10 years from his past life. This unusual turn of events finally convinced Theo of the impossibility of becoming a weak warrior, even in this new life after reincarnation. The next few days of training were spent under constant shouting and criticism from Randall, who was trying to correct his student's sword technique. Theo's rapidly growing strength forced him to pretend to be a weak student and patiently listen to the endless instructions of his irritating instructor. Close observation of the training process allowed Theo to notice the deliberate distortion of fencing techniques on the part of the suspicious instructor. In addition to constantly improving his fighting skills, Theo was passionate about uncovering the identity of the mysterious killer from his past life. The endless shouting and nagging of the annoying mentor forced Theo to stop the pointless training, which caused another angry outburst from Randall. By demonstratively breaking his wooden training sword, Theo openly expressed his dissatisfaction with the senseless and harmful instructions of his incompetent teacher. Theo openly doubted Randall's abilities as a swordsman, suggesting that he would not be able to deal with even the weakest demonic creature. Watching Randall's furious reaction, Theo was finally convinced of the true purpose of appointing this man as his personal fencing instructor. Theo decided to provoke the dismissal of the suspicious instructor by publicly ridiculing his professional skills in handling bladed weapons. Randall's uncontrollable rage in response to the student's insulting words was the first sign that Theo's plan had succeeded. A joyful knight arrived at Camelia's palace to tell Axion the important news of the upcoming duel between Theo and his insulted teacher next week. The satisfied knight maliciously anticipated the inevitable transformation of the arrogant student into a helpless cripple after a duel with the angry instructor. A heavy mug of whiskey thrown by Axion suddenly interrupted the careless knight's joyful thoughts about the upcoming punishment of young Ragnar. The mighty Axion Ragnar, known as the Dark Tiger among the four kings of the north, coldly expressed complete indifference to the fate of his annoying relative. Remington, nicknamed the Silver Lion, who was nearby, silently watched what was happening, not reacting in any way to the rough treatment of the fallen knight. Heavenly Dragon Ed, one of the legendary 9 dragons, suddenly advised Axion to be more concerned about Theo's possible defeat. Axion calmly explained the excessiveness of his uncle's concern, since he considered the untalented relative unworthy of the special attention of the Ragnar family. An irritated Axion demanded to know the reason for the mighty heavenly dragon's unusual interest in the fate of the worthless representative of the Ragnar clan. The wise Ed compared the descendants of Ragnar to an unpredictable flame in the wind, capable of instantly dying out or flaring up with unprecedented force. Axion took the news of the upcoming duel as a successful solution to the problem with an inconvenient relative at the hands of an ambitious fencing instructor. A crowd of spectators gathered at the 4th training ground to watch the unusual duel between the teacher and his rebellious student. Theo gripped his sword hilt tightly and reflected that his original plan had been to simply fire the troublesome instructor, Randall. An unexpected turn of events completely spiraled out of the young warrior's control, turning a simple act of revenge into a public confrontation between teacher and student. The emergence of a new system quest, requiring him to defeat Randall in a fair fight, finally convinced Theo of the inevitability of the upcoming duel. The events of a week ago began with Theo's attempt to fire his instructor, who actively resisted, citing the current contract. Theo calmly reminded the agitated Randall of his rights as the main employer, who could terminate their educational interaction at any moment. Memories of the tragic events of his past life prompted Theo to immediately deal with the traitor, but his current lack of confidence in his own strength required more cautious actions. Alarmed by the possible failure of his secret mission, Randall attempted to intimidate the young gentleman by threatening to report the wrongful dismissal to a disciplinary tribunal. Theo's thoughts about his next steps were suddenly interrupted by the appearance of a system notification about the start of the 3rd training task. Evelina's unexpected appearance with a sly smile and an offer to resolve the conflict in the traditional Ragnar clan way caught the disputants off guard. Evelina proposed a fair resolution to the conflict through a traditional sword duel, where the winner would have the right to exercise their will without resorting to a tribunal. An inspired Randall took Evelina's unexpected proposal as a lucky sign from fate, giving him the opportunity to carry out his insidious plan. Theo's internal resistance to participating in the duel proved futile after Evelina announced a week's deadline to prepare for the fight. A sober assessment of his opponent's fighting skills forced Theo to acknowledge his current inability to win the upcoming fight. The assembled warriors disdainfully discussed Theo's inability to hold a sword properly, doubting his affiliation with the renowned Ragnar clan. Observers unanimously predicted the inevitable defeat of the inexperienced student in a fight with the experienced mid-rank swordsman Randall. Randall's condescending offer to forget the conflict in exchange for a public apology was met with Theo's stern warning about the possible consequences of a duel. The young master's stubborn desire to bring the conflict to a decisive battle finally convinced Randall to cast aside the remnants of leniency towards his student. The cunning plan to kill a disliked student under the guise of an accident during a training match seemed like an excellent solution to Randall's problem. Randall condescendingly allowed his student to strike the first blow, demonstratively emphasizing his superiority over the inexperienced opponent. Theo's swift attack was met with the confident defense of an experienced swordsman, ready to stop any attempt by the student to break through the defense. The knights watching the duel noted the obvious advantage of the experienced Randall over the student, who was incapable of properly handling a training sword. Randall's blatant bullying of the helpless student raised concerns among observers for the life of the inexperienced fighter during the duel. Confident in his superiority, Randall didn't even consider it necessary to use all his fighting skills against an inexperienced beginner-level student. Theo's slight improvement in swordsmanship over the past few weeks could not have any impact on the inevitable outcome of the duel with the experienced mentor. Theo's lack of training equal to the 4 Northern Kings made his victory over the experienced Randall virtually impossible in the eyes of observers. The events of a week ago brought the curious Theo to Evelina's chambers to find out the true reasons for her unexpected offer to have a duel. Evelina explained the need for careful preparation to eliminate an influential adversary, hinting at the existence of Randall's powerful patron. The perceptive Evelina had long noticed the oddities in Randall's teaching methods and had organized secret surveillance of the suspicious instructor. Randall's absurd instructions on the correct angles for holding a sword finally convinced the experienced warrior of the false qualifications of the self-proclaimed teacher. A surprised Theo realized Evelina's close attention to him after the incident with the mysterious manifestation of energy from the mana chambers. Evelina's meticulous investigation revealed a direct connection between the suspicious instructor Randall and the intrigues of the Camellia Palace against the Ragnar clan. The unexpected discovery of a connection between the events of a past life and the betrayal of his own brothers in the struggle for the throne shocked the confused Theo. Controlling his anger, Theo sincerely praised the impressive results of the insightful Evelina's thorough investigation. A realistic assessment of his current fighting skills led a worried Theo to seek advice from an experienced warrior before an important duel. Evelina's confident smile accompanied her words about Theo underestimating his own potential in the upcoming fight with the self-proclaimed teacher. Randall's furious attacks were accompanied by arrogant demands for an immediate apology from the rebellious student in exchange for possible forgiveness. The sudden ease with which the alert Theo parried the powerful blow of the experienced swordsman made Randall wary during the duel. After parrying several serious attacks in quick succession, a worried Randall became aware of the unexpected changes in his student's fighting skills. The stunning realization of Theo's rapid advancement in fighting skill came too late for Randall to change his tactics in the duel. Numerous spectators watched with surprise as the advantage in the duel gradually shifted from the experienced teacher to the young student. Theo's flawless defense against any attacks from his former mentor brought a knowing smile from Evelina, pleased with the results of her training. A recent conversation with Theo came back to Evelina, who remembered her promise to prepare her student to defeat Randall in 1 week. Realizing that her intervention violated clan rules, Evelina considered it unacceptable to allow the impostor to continue training young Ragnar. The unexpected patronage of a powerful warrior who had become his debtor turned out to be Theo's most successful acquisition in recent times. Doubts about the true motives behind Evelina's sudden support led Theo to consider a possible connection with the incident of the discovery of the mana chambers. The experienced warrior shared with young Ragnar information about a mysterious talent collector whose attention might be drawn to the novice swordsman's rapid progress in mastering martial arts. The intense battle reached its climax when the training blades of the young student and the overconfident mentor crossed in a display of equal fencing skill. The panic-stricken instructor began to realize the monstrous error in his assessment of the abilities of his student, who had been skillfully masking the true level of his combat skill all this time. The determined pupil of the Ragnar clan, taking advantage of the enemy's confusion, tried to find out the identity of the mysterious patron of the treacherous teacher. The enraged mid-ranking swordsman repelled the young fighter's swift attack and demanded an immediate explanation for the strange accusations against him. By skillfully dodging the enemy's furious attacks, the insightful student uncovered the true reason for the deliberately incorrect teaching, which was not related to the mentor's personal hostility. The devastating revelation of the treacherous instructor's connection to the intrigues of the Camellia Palace was reflected in the shocked look on Randall's face as he tried to justify his student's incompetence. Having lost interest in continuing the duel, the heir of the great clan pointed the tip of his training sword at the traitorous hand of his former mentor, anticipating well-deserved retribution. A lightning-fast strike from the training blade severed the traitor's limb, forcing the defeated swordsman to fall to his knees with a deafening cry of unbearable pain. The stunned traitor's incomprehension was replaced by the satisfaction of the young warrior, who realized the significant superiority of his current combat skill over his past incarnation. The triumphant victor reminded the defeated enemy of the unfair accusations of his family's death that had been made in the reincarnated warrior's distant past. The blade raised for the fatal blow was accompanied by a stern reminder of the fatal mistake of the overconfident mentor, who underestimated the true strength of his opponent. The merciless verdict sounded like a final affirmation of the sacred right of the strong, which lies at the heart of the ancient traditions of the renowned clan of Dragon Slayer warriors. Desperate pleas for mercy were cut short along with the traitor's head, and a mysterious system notification congratulated the winner on successfully completing the third test. The inspired triumphant, without wasting precious time, immediately activated the receipt of an additional reward for exceeding the initial requirements of the difficult task. Shocked spectators witnessed the incredible transformation of a supposedly untalented student who managed to surpass and destroy an experienced mid-level fencing master. A sneer of contempt crossed the bloodied face of the reborn warrior, remembering the years of humiliation at the hands of a pathetic swordsman in his past life. Wiping the bloody spatter from his face, the triumphant winner swore an oath of coming change, receiving as a reward the ability of observation and a year's supply of magical energy. The joy of gaining additional magical potential was mixed with the young warrior's curiosity about the mysterious ability of observation. Absorbed in thoughts about the awards he had received, the fighter did not notice the sudden appearance of a powerful figure behind him and the ominous crack of the earth being destroyed. The thunderous voice of the legendary commander of the elite squad, the mighty demon dragon Julius Ragnar, made those present on the training ground shudder. The sudden appearance of the renowned commander caused awe and confusion in the young victor, who was trying to determine the duration of the duel. The students and the site manager were all amazed by the unexpected appearance of one of the legendary Nine Dragons on the ordinary training grounds. Dissatisfaction with the destroyed training ground flooring was reflected on the face of the experienced warrior, accustomed to the spectacular appearances of the eccentric commander. The feeling of the ominous aura of the approaching demonic dragon caused panicked thoughts in the young warrior, who was going over possible offenses against the legendary commander. The commander's thunderous laughter accompanied his sincere praise for the exciting duel and the outstanding abilities of the young fighter, who had surpassed his mentor. The renowned warrior's condescending remark about disrespect for his teacher was replaced by recognition of the justice of retribution for the betrayal of the treacherous mentor. A friendly pat from a powerful hand accompanied the unexpected offer to join the elite squad of dragon riders in snow-white armor. General bewilderment gripped the warriors present, unable to comprehend the invitation of a recent outcast to join the legendary unit of renowned dragon slayers. The unprecedented nature of the situation was emphasized by the absence in the clan's history of cases of students being accepted into the elite squad before undergoing the Sacred Awakening ceremony. The contradiction with ancient traditions was aggravated by the impossibility of determining the true potential of a warrior with a closed chamber of magical energy. Outstanding fencing skills did not guarantee sufficient magical potential, which called into question the experienced commander's decision to invite a new recruit. The renowned military leader's ability to discern incredible potential in a young warrior worthy of immediate enlistment in an elite unit aroused widespread curiosity. The recent outcast's stunning refusal of a prestigious appointment to a legendary squad has caused a new wave of shock among those witnessing the incredible events. The rapid spread of rumors about the destruction of his own mentor by a former outcast shook the measured life of the noble knights of the clan. Confusion about the true strength of the deceased instructor spread among the warriors, who continued to doubt the abilities of the young victor. The stunning contrast between the humble refusal of an honorary appointment and the personal invitation of the legendary demon dragon aroused universal admiration. This rare display of noble restraint by the clan's direct heir was applauded by the elder warriors who valued the ancient virtues of the great family. Alarming news of the secret agent's death reached the beautiful Lady Aimila at the Camellia Palace, where a mysterious interlocutor tried to calm the worried aristocrat. The mighty heavenly dragon Ed's disdain for the death of the incompetent spy was explained by the original plan to exploit his incompetence. A concerned Lady Aimila pointed out the gravity of the situation, noting the demon dragon's personal attention to the young warrior and the presence of Evelina, the experienced mentor, at the duel. The loss of the ability to control the development of young Ragnar through the appointment of new teachers seriously complicated the plans of the rising warrior's opponents. The carefree Axion dismissed the alarming news, confident in the clan leader's indifference to the fate of his young relative and the successful implementation of his plans. The insightful aristocrat reminded her comrades that the successful subjugation of the Rose Palace without attracting the attention of the clan leader was only possible if Theo remained weak. The wise Sky Dragon explained the legendary warrior's sudden interest in young Ragnar as a result of their age-old tendency to support the rejected members of a great clan. The experienced commander's meaningful look made the self-confident Axion reflect on the unobvious complexity of the current situation. Having received alarming letters from his mother and uncle, the arrogant heir decided to personally teach the presumptuous relative a lesson about his true place in the family. The talented student successfully completed another training session under Evelina's guidance, earning sincere praise from the experienced mentor. The grateful student was delighted at the opportunity to study with a true master, although the perceptive Evelina continued to ponder the strange refusal to join the elite squad. Young Ragnar bitterly recalled his unfulfilled dream of joining the legendary dragon riders in his past life. The wise decision to delay joining the elite squad was based on not wanting to prematurely limit one's development opportunities. The expected benefits after the awakening ceremony far exceeded the privileges of membership in the prestigious dragon riders in snow-white armor. Concealing the true reasons for his refusal, the young warrior explained his decision by his reluctance to receive special privileges and his gratitude for the preparation for the important ceremony. The understanding mentor accepted her student's explanations, regretting the inevitable disappointment of the elite unit's commander. An inquisitive student decided to test his newly acquired observational ability on his experienced mentor. The new ability allowed the young warrior to see the hidden characteristics of his mentor, including her true title, rank, and current status. Having assessed the possibilities of the mysterious skill, the inspired student realized the enormous potential of this ability for future battles. The unexpected appearance of a mysterious knight from the Southern Inspectorate interrupted the training, sparking young Ragnar's interest in an important conversation. Alerted by the stranger's appearance, the young warrior immediately used his observation skills to assess the potential enemy. A magical scan revealed the identity of 17-year-old Sybil, a budding swordsman eager to take on the rising Ragnar. The unexpected guest's anxious gaze made the experienced warrior wary, anticipating a serious test. A timely system notification outlined the final task for young Ragnar, shedding his humiliating nickname through a demonstration of true strength. An inspired Sybil expressed a sincere desire to follow young Ragnar, impressed by his recent achievements. The aspiring swordsman admitted to changing his attitude towards Theo after watching his persistent training and impressive victory over his experienced mentor, the legendary demon dragon. Julius's admiration for the young Ragnar transformed the talented warrior into a new ideal for the ambitious Sybil. His own experience of dealing with a humiliating nickname allowed the young warrior to see in Theo a worthy example of overcoming unfair treatment from others. Kneeling, the sincere admirer asked for the opportunity to test his skills in a fair fight with the warrior who had inspired him. The ability to observe allowed young Ragnar to be convinced of the sincerity of his new follower's intentions, dispelling his initial doubts. The unexpected acquisition of the first follower was the result of rapidly spreading rumors of an impressive victory and the attention of a legendary commander. Instead of the expected hostility, young Ragnar found the support of warriors who retained the true pride of the great clan. The insightful heir understood the need to create a circle of loyal supporters to achieve the cherished goal of becoming the head of a powerful clan. The arrival of a new follower coincided with an important task: to rid himself of a humiliating nickname that had haunted the warrior in his past life. The wise mentor readily supported the student's desire to demonstrate his acquired skills in a duel with an inspired challenger. In keeping with the ancient traditions of dueling, young Ragnar introduced himself as a student of the Palace of Roses, naming his illustrious mentor. The return performance revealed that Sybil was the heir to the Kure clan's technique, specializing in lightning-fast close combat attacks. The rapid start of the duel allowed young Ragnar to appreciate the impressive speed of his opponent, who had inherited the traditions of an ancient clan. Despite the offensive nickname, the young warrior demonstrated outstanding mastery of high-speed attacks, worthy of countering Theo's increased skill. The experienced warrior noted the unfairness of his opponent's nickname, realizing that in a past life such a duel could have ended in his defeat. A significantly increased level of combat skill allowed young Ragnar to achieve a confident victory over a worthy opponent. The grateful follower was genuinely delighted at the opportunity to fight his new idol, gaining invaluable experience in a thrilling duel. Following the ancient traditions of warrior etiquette, young Ragnar raised his training blade in respect and sincerely praised Sybil's impressive fighting skills. A sudden idea came to the inquisitive warrior's mind while looking at the reflection in the polished blade of his sword, to test the effect of the ability of observation on himself. A successful experiment with a new ability revealed to the interested warrior a system window displaying his personal characteristics and achievements. A careful study of the opened system window allowed young Ragnar to discover all the acquired abilities in a special talent section. An inspiring discovery told the determined warrior that successful completion of subsequent tasks would earn him 4 more hidden magical abilities. A careful analysis of the stats revealed a high level of magical power thanks to the accumulated energy of a past life and a dragon's heart, but revealed a disturbing negative luck indicator. The unexpected discovery made the young warrior wonder about the possible connection between the negative luck value and numerous failures in his past life. Understanding the influence of luck on one's destiny strengthened the determined fighter's resolve to find a way to improve this important statistic by any means necessary. The sudden discovery of a large group of swordsman apprentices behind him surprised the young warrior, who was focused on his thoughts. The experienced mentor watched the situation closely, understanding the significance of her student's victory over an average-level fencer, despite all of the latter's shortcomings. Recognition of young Ragnar's exceptional abilities by the legendary commander of an elite squad will inevitably cause a strong reaction in a clan that extols strength above all else. The attentive Evelina foresaw 2 possible responses from her clanmates to the young warrior's rapid growth in strength: burning envy or sincere admiration. The observant mentor quickly identified the genuine admiration in the eyes of the assembled students, eager to test their strength in a duel with the talented fighter. Enthusiastic spectators watched the duels with undisguised interest, wondering about their own chances of countering the impressive swordsmanship of young Ragnar. Careful use of his powers of observation allowed the young warrior to single out Eod, a low-ranking swordsman from the noble Viscounty of Nalon, among the contenders. The honorable invitation to a duel from a renowned warrior brought genuine joy and excitement to the ambitious representative of a noble family. Observing traditional dueling etiquette, the young aristocrat introduced himself as the third son of Viscount Nalon and called his unique fencing style Double Exaltation. A thrilling duel with a worthy opponent further refined young Ragnar's basic swordsmanship. A timely repulse of a dangerous enemy attack at a critical moment in the fight brought the talented warrior yet another boost in his fencing skills. A confident victory over a worthy opponent brought young Ragnar not only the sincere respect of the vanquished, but also a long-awaited increase in his luck stat. The talented warrior's keen mind quickly established the important connection between growing reputation, gaining approval from others, and increasing luck. Understanding the mechanism for improving an important characteristic strengthened the determined fighter's resolve to continue demonstrating his skills in new fights. The young Ragnar's string of impressive victories continued until the flow of those wishing to test their strength in a duel with the invincible warrior was completely exhausted. A rigorous system progress check revealed a disappointing result. Multiple successful matches increased the completion of an important task by only 1%. A thoughtful analysis of the situation suggested to the young warrior the need to fight stronger opponents or demonstrate his skills in front of a wider audience. The end of the flow of those wishing to fight allowed the tired warrior to think about a well-deserved rest after a series of grueling duels. The unexpected appearance of the legendary Silver Lion Remington with a challenge to a duel instantly dispelled any thoughts of rest for the inspired young fighter. The appearance of one of the famed Hounds of the North caused awe among the assembled spectators, eager to witness the legendary duel. The honorary title of Northern Hounds was held by outstanding warriors of the clan's new generation, including the mighty Axion of the Camellia Palace and the legendary Remington. The prestigious title was awarded to the 4 strongest warriors of the younger generation who successfully completed the sacred awakening ceremony of the Ragnar clan. The renowned warrior explained his early arrival by his genuine interest in the young Ragnar's fighting prowess on the eve of the important awakening ceremony. The legendary swordsman, with a friendly smile, thanked the young warrior for his willingness to fulfill his wish to test the growing power of his new talent. Calmly accepting the unexpected challenge, the young fighter carefully concealed his excitement at the upcoming duel with the renowned genius of the blade. The opportunity to cross swords with the legendary deputy clan leader filled the young warrior's heart with pride, regardless of the outcome of the current mission. A strong determination to fight with all his might against the legendary enemy was strengthened in the heart of the inspired young Ragnar. The approach of the renowned swordmaster made the young warrior wonder about his real chances of confronting such a monster of fencing. The first clash of training blades in a thrilling duel immediately brought a long-awaited boost to progress on an important quest. A swift attack from a powerful opponent ended the duel, shattering the inexperienced warrior's training sword into tiny pieces. The predictable outcome of the duel surprised no one, as even the young fighter's increased skill could not compare with the strength of one of the legendary Hounds of the North. The impressive display of unwavering fighting spirit in an unequal battle evoked the sincere admiration of all witnesses to the heroic confrontation. The sudden admission of defeat by Remington, a renowned swordsman, was accompanied by sincere gratitude for the exciting duel. The astute warrior noted the unfavorable conditions of the duel for the young fighter, including the wear of his training sword and the accumulated fatigue from previous fights. The principled Ragnar reminded his illustrious opponent of the harsh laws of combat, where the loss of a weapon means inevitable defeat, regardless of the circumstances. A friendly handshake was accompanied by a mutual wish for a new duel, where both warriors would be able to demonstrate the maximum of their fighting abilities. The public recognition of the young fighter's talent by the legendary Hound of the North finally convinced observers of the incredible potential of young Ragnar. Completing mysterious system quests and following secret instructions greatly enhanced the reincarnated warrior's combat skills compared to his previous life. A direct confrontation with a powerful opponent allowed the young fighter to realize the significant difference in the level of strength between them. The valuable experience of confronting the legendary warrior brought young Ragnar a significant boost in luck and public recognition. A modest increase in progress on the main quest did not discourage the determined warrior, who decided to explore alternative ways to improve his reputation. The unexpected appearance of a sealed letter in the hands of the renowned swordmaster gave the meeting additional meaning beyond a training duel. The ceremonial invitation to the elite community of the Scaled Dragon sounded from the lips of the legendary warrior with undisguised enthusiasm. Awe filled those present at the sight of the rare invitation to a prestigious society, accessible only to select members of the clan. The incredible event, a personal invitation from the renowned Remington, left the assembled warriors holding their breath in anticipation of young Ragnar's response. The humble acknowledgement of the honor bestowed was accompanied by the young warrior's modest doubts about his own fitness for the high standards of the illustrious community. Alarmed by the talented newcomer's doubts, the legendary warrior hastened to assure him of his undoubted worthiness to join the elite circle. The reassuring explanation presented the community as an informal association of talented peers awaiting an important awakening ceremony. The reborn warrior's keen gaze tried to unravel the true motives behind the unexpected invitation from the representative of a powerful group. Understanding the nature of the elite community centered around the arrogant Axion presented young Ragnar with the perfect opportunity to carry out the task. The strategic decision to accept the invitation was based on the opportunity to study the enemy and increase reputation, which immediately reflected in the progress of the mission. Remington's genuine joy at the positive response was expressed in a friendly offer to help the new member of the prestigious community. Information about the upcoming meeting in a week caused a cautious reaction from the experienced mentor, who sensed possible complications. The young warrior's triumphant return to the Palace of Roses was interrupted by the sudden appearance of his excited mother with rapturous praise. An important message froze on young Ragnar's lips at the sight of the extraordinary number of servants filling the spacious halls of the family estate. The mother's enthusiastic tale revealed the significance of an elite community uniting the powerful Axion, the offspring of the cunning Ymila, and the brilliant Remington. The High Council's close attention to members of prestigious society extended to the smallest details of the appearance and behavior of young aristocrats. The mother's confidence in her son's impeccable knowledge of etiquette was combined with concern about his appearance meeting the high standards of elite society. An unexpected mention of his caring mother's artistic past opened up new opportunities for preparing young Ragnar for important social events. The insightful young man understood the depth of his mother's guilt for the stigma of being an illegitimate heir that had haunted him since birth. The harsh traditions of the powerful clan made the fate of the mother, whose only son was considered devoid of magical talent, especially difficult. The mother's embrace was accompanied by a fervent belief in the ability of her beloved son to overcome any trials on the path to recognition. The reciprocal display of filial love was accompanied by confident words of comfort, intended to dispel the mother's anxiety. Behind the outward facade of joy at his son's entry into elite society, he hid his secret plans to destroy the powerful community from within. The ceremonial moment of the official banquet of the elite community arrived after 2 weeks of careful preparation for the young warrior. An elegant carriage with Remington waiting inside arrived to pick up the new member of the community, in full accordance with the highest etiquette. The magnificent appearance of the young aristocrat, dressed in luxurious clothes, made an indelible impression on the arriving escort. The striking change in the appearance of young Ragnar made the astonished Remington doubt the reality of what was happening. A cheerful laugh masked the young warrior's pride at the results of intensive training, which had noticeably improved his physical condition over the past weeks. Regular visits from the renowned swordmaster filled young Ragnar's training days with invaluable combat experience and wise instructions. Daily training under the guidance of the young master gathered a growing number of devoted followers eager to learn from his unique experience. The sudden transformation of simple training sessions into large-scale warrior gatherings caused embarrassment to the experienced instructor, who unwittingly became the center of everyone's attention. The unexpected transformation of solitary training into large-scale classes attracted not only many new students, but also regular visits from the legendary Remington. The astute mentor tried to calm the young warrior's noticeable anxiety before his first appearance in the elite society of experienced aristocrats. A friendly warning about possible difficulties with Axion came from Remington, with obvious concern for his new comrade. The unexpected revelation of the powerful Axion's personal initiative in inviting the young Ragnar made the experienced warrior wary. The startling discovery that an entire banquet had been organized specifically to meet young Ragnar heightened suspicions of the influential aristocrat's ill intentions. The intuitive sense of a hidden threat in Axion's unusual attention paradoxically coincided with the young warrior's secret plans to infiltrate high society. The impatient anticipation of the arrival of his new toy was accompanied by leisurely sips of expensive wine from the personal collection of the self-confident Axion Ragnar. The ceremonial arrival of a luxurious carriage to the majestic gates of the Camellia Castle was marked by the appearance of two noble warriors, Remington and his ward. Young Ragnar's attentive gaze studied the majestic palace of Camellia, hiding the masterminds of Randall's vile betrayal and the perpetrators of the tragedy of his past life. A misinterpretation of his companion's thoughtful expression prompted the caring Remington to suggest that they quickly enter the luxurious mansion. The exquisite decoration of the palace courtyard accompanied Remington's detailed explanation of Axion's intention to personally greet the long-awaited guest at the front entrance. The seasoned warrior's curiosity about the true motives for inviting the former outcast was combined with growing concern about the outcome of the upcoming meeting. Young Ragnar's hidden glee at the coincidence of his opponent's cunning plans was masked by the polite smile of a grateful guest. The sudden discovery of a mysterious blue glow, reminiscent of the familiar system interface, attracted the keen attention of the seasoned, reincarnated warrior. An ominous premonition of impending danger overshadowed the solemn moment of arrival at the palace, but did not have time to prevent a treacherous trap. The lightning-fast fall of the massive object left a worried Remington helplessly watching the approaching threat to his charge's life. The experienced warrior's timely reaction allowed him to avoid being hit by a heavy sack of flour, which had been treacherously dropped by one of the earlier arriving banquet guests. An instant assessment of the situation helped young Ragnar realize the potential danger of such a joke for a less physically prepared person. A careful analysis of Remington's genuine surprise and status indicators allowed the young warrior to exclude his companion from the list of possible organizers of the assassination attempt. A mysterious ability of observation helped to discover the true culprits of the incident, whose disrespectful attitude was manifested in such a dangerous greeting. The righteous indignation of the noble Remington gave rise to undisguised contempt for the organizers of this dangerous prank, who considered such behavior an acceptable manifestation of hospitality. The sudden appearance of a smug Axion was accompanied by a cynical explanation of the incident as a traditional brotherly greeting between members of the great clan. A quick scan of the arrogant aristocrat's stats revealed the frightening talents of madness and psychopathy, confirming his intention to have some fun with his new toy. The unexpectedly calm reaction of the alleged victim to the dangerous provocation caused genuine surprise in the self-confident organizer of the treacherous assassination attempt. The refined politeness of the return of gratitude for the unusual greeting masked the young warrior's growing contempt for the arrogant brother. The artful display of friendly acceptance of a dangerous joke was accompanied by an expression of genuine enthusiasm for the upcoming festive banquet. The unexpectedly calm acceptance of the provocation brought a devilish smile from Axion, pleased with the unpredictable behavior of his new, funny toy. The animated whispers of the assembled guests reflected the general bewilderment regarding the true intentions of the mysterious host of the gala reception. The noble guests' conflicting feelings were torn between indignation at the inappropriate treatment of a representative of the main branch and surprise at his impeccable appearance. The noble Remington's sincere repentance for the unexpectedly aggressive behavior of his acquaintances was accompanied by numerous apologies to the honored guest. A philosophical acceptance of the abusive behavior of those around him masked the young warrior's growing determination to use every evil word as a pretext for future retribution. The mysterious blue glow continued to attract the attention of the experienced warrior, who was forced to restrain his obvious interest in order to maintain secrecy among the suspicious guests. The demonstrative appearance of a satisfied Axion was accompanied by a mocking interest in the impressions of the dear guest from the unusual evening of entertainment. The natural nervousness that came with facing a dangerous opponent quickly gave way to a cool determination to follow a carefully thought-out plan. A skillful display of gratitude for the invitation elicited an unexpected apology from the self-confident host for the excessive insolence of his previous greeting. The familiar embrace of the treacherous aristocrat was accompanied by a close examination of the little brother's reaction to the unexpected manifestation of feigned repentance. Anxious observation of the developing tense situation forced a worried Remington to try to stop the aggressive onslaught of the Dark Tiger. The young warrior's mastery of the art of small talk allowed him to elegantly recall the early interpretation of a dangerous prank as a simple greeting. Axion's loud, delighted laughter was accompanied by a friendly pat on the shoulder and a sincere acknowledgement of the pleasant changes in the former outcast character. The close attention of the assembled guests of the elite community was accompanied by silent approval of the appropriate behavior of the powerful aristocrat's new toy. The disdainful glances of the guests at the elite banquet expressed the typical attitude of the nobility towards the bastard Theo Ragnar, considering his inability to resist the pure-blooded heirs to be natural. The gulf between young Theo's origins as a casual encounter and the ancient lineage of the Eastern swordsmen of Clan Ragnar seemed an insurmountable barrier to the aristocrats present. Skillfully concealing his deep resentment under a mask of indifference, young Ragnar continued to watch the bewildered knights discussing Remington's strange concern for the despicable bastard. The sudden awareness of their own involuntary hypocrisy forced those present to recall the illegitimate origins of Remington himself, whom they had previously considered an exception. A momentary silence fell among the guests, who remembered the unspoken prohibition against discussing the origins of high-ranking clan members in polite society. Young Theo's keen gaze instantly caught the mighty Remington's painful reaction to the cruel hints about his origins. Growing indignation forced the reborn warrior to abandon his role as a passive observer, realizing the unacceptability of such insults to a worthy person. Addressing the haughty Axion with defiance, young Ragnar gracefully disguised his intention to take revenge as a polite wish to greet his new acquaintances. Theo's deliberate approach to the main instigator of the insults directed at Remington with an expensive bottle of wine aroused the wary interest of the surrounding guests. The smug smile of the arrogant aristocrat instantly turned into a grimace of pain when a heavy bottle of vintage wine smashed against his well-groomed face. Stunned by the unexpected audacity of the despicable bastard, the aristocrat tried to incinerate Theo with a hateful look, not believing in the reality of the humiliation that had occurred. A crushing kick to the face of the arrogant offender was accompanied by a caustic remark from young Ragnar about the inconsistency of the nickname "worthless" with his current actions. The sarcastic explanation of his actions as a simple greeting underscored the absurdity of the arrogant aristocrat's previous insults. Stunned witnesses to the brutal retribution dismissed young Ragnar's actions as madness, unaware of the rapid growth of the mysterious system task. The astute Remington, who knew well the reserved nature of young Ragnar, realized that the sudden outburst of violence was caused by insults addressed to himself and, satisfied with the effect of this peculiar greeting, young Ragnar decided to end his stay at the ball with an equally impressive farewell gesture. The sinister intention to break the offender's arm as a farewell gesture made the guests present hold their breath in anticipation of the inevitable denouement. The desperate cries of the fallen aristocrat were accompanied by the crunch of breaking bones, and a mysterious system marked the completion of 60% of the important task. A leisurely survey of the hushed crowd was accompanied by a polite question from young Ragnar about those wishing to continue the ceremony of mutual greetings in the established format. The unexpected encirclement of enraged knights with naked blades at the throat of the impudent Theo was accompanied by menacing demands for the death penalty for attacking a noble lord. Young Ragnar's demonstrative indifference to the threats helped to reveal the victim's identity. He turned out to be the third heir of the powerful Hanavi clan, named John. A sudden revelation revealed to Theo the true reason for his invitation to the elite dragon-scale community, filled with hidden enemies of his kind. The disturbing realization that the crippled aristocrat belonged to one of the 6 snow clans that supported the power of the Ragnars complicated the situation. The reborn warrior's determined gaze assessed the hostile knights, unable to come to terms with the sudden rise of the previously despised bastard. A bold challenge was expressed in young Ragnar's question about the legitimacy of death threats against the heir of a great clan by the servants of a vassal house. The threatening tone of the legitimate heir was accompanied by a demand to be prepared to answer for the disrespect shown to a representative of the ruling dynasty. The unexpected wave of pressure coming from the previously despised bastard made the self-confident knights doubt the wisdom of their attitude towards young Ragnar. The belated realization of Theo's equal right to inherit the throne, despite his origins, forced the hostile warriors to reconsider their position. The majestic title of Lord of the North and supreme ruler of the 6 snow clans reminded those present of the power of the ancient Ragnar family. Threatening people with dragon blood with death is usually a sin that can even result in the destruction of the entire clan. The realization of the radical change in the status of young Ragnar forced the knights to understand the inapplicability of their previous disdainful attitude towards the heir. The belated desire to apologize was interrupted by the unexpected order of young Ragnar for the immediate execution of all who dared to point a weapon at him. The successive beheadings of the rebellion's instigators culminated in the appearance of an unexpected executioner, the legendary warrior Evelina. The insightful mentor inquired with interest from her student about the moment of the revelation of her presence, although to the attentive Theo it had been obvious from the very beginning. The timely intervention of an experienced warrior allowed young Ragnar to skillfully exploit the current situation to strengthen his position. The events of a week ago began with Evelina's unexpected invitation to a confidential conversation with the powerful commander Julius over a glass of fine wine. The legendary warrior's interest in the sudden changes in the life of his former mentor, now teaching young Ragnar, demanded a detailed report on the achievements of the unusual student. The perceptive warrior was perplexed by the unusual choice of meeting place, which contradicted the old habits of the former commander of the Dragon Riders. The mighty warrior's good-natured laughter accompanied his joking remark about Evelina's excessive attention to his small joys in life instead of answering the important question. Yielding to the persistence of the renowned commander, the experienced mentor recognized the exceptional talent and character of young Ragnar, who surpassed all her previous students. Commander Julius listened to his mentor's words in surprise, remembering that the talented Axion was also her student, and he could not understand why she considered Theo more capable. Evelina firmly stated that young Theo's innate potential far exceeded that of even such a gifted student as young Master Axion. Julius laughed at his mentor's confidence, jokingly noting that Evelina's two healthy eyes could indeed see more than his only one. The experienced commander was concerned about the reasons that had forced young Theo to hide his true strength for so long, because such a sudden change seemed suspicious. The mentor shared the commander's concern, wondering about the motives that had prompted her secretive student to suddenly begin demonstrating his true strength. Years of experience had taught Evelina that hasty actions and sudden changes in students' behavior often led to serious problems. Watching the young Ragnar's actions closely, the experienced mentor felt as if some external force was rushing him, especially with his entry into the Dragon Scale Society. Julius immediately understood the source of his mentor's anxiety, the presence of the insidious Axion in the Dragon Scale Society, so he suggested to Evelina not to leave Theo unprotected. The commander acknowledged the validity of the experienced mentor's concerns, knowing her ability to foresee potential problems for her students. The seasoned warrior sensed the approach of serious events, realizing that the gathering of ambitious young aristocrats would inevitably lead to a struggle for power. The commander pointed to the hanging white cloaks of the elite squad and asked Evelina to hint to young Theo about the possibility of joining the prestigious Dragon Riders. Julius left 2 sets of uniforms and reminded Evelina that losing her ability to fly a dragon did not negate her value as a skilled warrior and mentor. The commander asked his former subordinate to return to the unit and take responsibility for the development of a talented student she had introduced to him. Julius left the room, not forgetting to thank Evelina for the excellent and obviously expensive wine she treated him to during their important conversation. Emerging from her memories, Evelina realized that the perceptive Theo had known of her presence from the very beginning and had deliberately used the situation for his own purposes. The mentor realized that her worries were unfounded, as the intelligent student had specifically joined the Dragon Scale Society with a clear plan of action. Evelina wanted to know how her student was able to detect her hidden presence, as such an ability required exceptional skill and rare talent. Young Ragnar only smiled mysteriously, mentally noting that he felt the presence of his mentor immediately after he got into Remington's carriage. The owner of a unique dragon heart could use a special energy perception known as a sixth sense, allowing one to notice the hidden presence of others. Theo was pleased with the successful execution of his plan and decided to turn to his mentor, who was closely observing what was happening, with an important question. Young Ragnar calmly pointed out to Evelina the disrespectful behavior of the assembled aristocrats towards the candidate for successor to the clan and asked about the appropriate punishment. The experienced mentor cast a stern glance at the frightened guests and informed them that clan laws permitted the immediate death penalty for such a crime. Theo softened the harsh sentence, noting the young age of the guilty aristocrats who had not yet undergone the awakening ceremony and had not yet reached their full strength. The young gentleman suggested a more lenient punishment, cutting off one hand of each culprit, considering this a sufficient lesson for the impudent youths. Evelina immediately carried out the young master's order, cutting off the right hands of the scions of noble families, the second son of the Bayron clan, the heir of the Red Faith, and many others. One of the frightened youths crawled to the arrogant Axion, begging for protection and salvation from cruel punishment for his disrespect. Axion looked contemptuously at the cowardly petitioner, refusing to interfere with the deserved punishment for the disrespect shown to a member of the main branch of the clan. After the punishment was over, the arrogant Axion exchanged a knowing glance with Evelina, acknowledging the unexpectedness of their meeting again under such unusual circumstances. Axion's keen gaze noted that the experienced warrior had only punished those who insulted Theo's origins, and had acted in such a way that even he could not stop her. Evelina officially reported to the young master about the execution of the order, stating the exact number of those punished. 14 people lost their right hands. The mentor informed the victims of the possibility of restoring severed limbs with the help of priests, but warned of the inevitable deterioration of fencing skills. Axion realized with growing fury that the cunning Theo had managed to attract not only Evelina but also the faithful Remington to his side, turning himself from a despicable bastard into a dangerous enemy. Young Ragnar announced his intention to return home, and the devoted Remington immediately volunteered to accompany his new friend. Following the rules of etiquette, Theo politely thanked the enraged Axion for a wonderful evening and the opportunity to have a good time in the company of Dragonscale. Axion's face, distorted with rage, was the final touch to Theo's victory. The system marked the full completion of the fourth task to get rid of the humiliating nickname. The young warrior understood that completing the training missions was only the beginning of his true revenge for all the humiliations of the past and present. The system generously rewarded Theo for successfully completing the task, providing a special experience elixir capable of increasing his mastery level by 5 levels at once. A confused Axion was forced to report to the alarmed Aimila and Ed about the unexpected events at the Dragonscale banquet, which had astonished everyone present. Young Ragnar's devoted followers gathered at the local pub to celebrate their lord's illustrious debut into clan high society. A joyful atmosphere permeated the pub as delighted supporters surrounded young Theo, congratulating him on his magnificent victory over the haughty aristocrats. Ed and Aimila could not understand the reason for the sudden change in the character of young Theo, who in a short time turned from the worthless Ragnar into a dangerous opponent. An enraged Aimila slapped her son across the face, outraged by his rash decision to not only invite a despicable bastard, but also allow him to maim loyal people. Mother was deeply disappointed by Axion's frivolous attitude towards important matters, despite her constant requests for him to show more seriousness. Instead of subduing and pacifying the impudent bastard, the self-confident Axion allowed young Ragnar to gain dangerous power and influence among the nobility. The shrewd schemer reminded her careless son that Theo's growing fame would greatly complicate their carefully laid plan to seize the Rose Palace. Axion's attempts to justify himself and propose a new solution were met with a harsh rebuff from his mother, who ordered him to leave immediately and reflect on his mistakes. The ambitious heir's reckless actions nearly ruined the magnificent plan, simply because of his desire to have some fun at the expense of the former outcast. Ed surprised the indignant Aimila with an unexpected remark about the complete similarity between her son's impulsive nature and her own behavior in her youth, and the wise counselor calmed the angry woman by pointing out the possibility of turning the incident to their advantage instead of useless panic. The Rose Palace's status as part of the clan leader's harem made it difficult to seize control of this important territory legally. Despite the clan leader's disdain for the Rose Palace as a place of exile, this part of the estate was still under his protection. Experienced intriguers understood the need to find a legal justification for the destruction of the unwanted palace and the elimination of its inhabitants. Young Theo's brutal actions at a Dragon Society meeting unwittingly made him the official representative of the interests of the despised Rose Palace. The cunning conspirators planned to use the bloody incident as a formal pretext for the legal destruction of the Rose Palace along with its daring defender. Aimila confessed her previous fears about the growing influence of the Rose Palace, due to the clan leader's growing attention to young Theo's amazing successes. A cunning plan to use Theo's increased power against him would allow the Camellia Palace to legally seize control of the lands of their defeated rivals. Delighted with the brilliant plan, Aimila eagerly asked Ed about the time needed for thorough preparation of the upcoming operation against the Rose Palace. The prudent Ed had already prepared everything necessary, promising his accomplice good news the next morning after a quiet rest. A caring advisor offered Aimila a relaxing bath with rare candles from the distant volcanic region of southern Arkan. The heartfelt hug expressed Aimila's deep gratitude to her older brother, who always carried out her most difficult tasks flawlessly. A touched Remington could not believe the sincere concern of young Theo, who risked his position to protect his honor from insults. Young Ragnar's noble behavior at the meeting made a strong impression on Remington. Theo steadfastly endured the ridicule directed at him. Theo's sudden outburst of righteous anger in defense of the insulted Remington caught the experienced warrior off guard, depriving him of the opportunity to respond to his offenders on his own. Careful observation of the young gentleman's behavior made the experienced Remington increasingly surprised by his hidden qualities. Young Ragnar showed incredible resilience, enduring years of contempt for his illegitimate origins and managing to grow into a strong individual. The bravery of the young warrior, who dared to challenge the mighty Camellia Palace, aroused sincere admiration in the seasoned Remington. Remington's deep emotion and gratitude for the unexpected protection were reflected not only in the tears in his eyes, but also in his systemic status. The attentive Theo noticed Remington's obvious misunderstanding of the situation, but was in no hurry to dissuade him. A sudden insight reminded Remington of his clan's mandate to strengthen ties with Axion, but he had already made a different decision. The determined warrior stood up and loudly declared his intention to become a loyal follower of young Master Theo against the will of his clan. Enthusiastic followers welcomed the mighty warrior's decision to join their ranks, delighted by the mutual recognition of strength. Theo's attempt to explain the situation was interrupted by a sudden telepathic message from Evelina, who was closely observing the events. The wise mentor reassured the student, noting the natural desire of those around him to get closer to the rising star of the clan, regardless of the reasons. Young Ragnar's modest smile expressed his understanding that his success depended largely on mysterious systemic clues. A new system message made Theo wonder about the nature of the strange signs, which he had previously perceived completely differently. A close examination of the detailed system messages gave the young warrior a strange feeling, as if he had seen something like this before. The end of the tense incident in the Dragon Society brought Theo a long-awaited level up in the mysterious system. The ability to distribute attribute points after leveling up allowed the young warrior to enhance the desired parameters. Reflections on the future led Theo to understand the need to carefully prepare for the upcoming confrontation with the Camellia Palace. Young Ragnar decided to seek help from the loyal Remington, using his experience in preparation for an important battle. The young hero handed Remington an important document and shared his thoughts on the impending conflict with Axion, which would soon reach its peak. The document contained a request for support in upcoming events that could change the fate of the entire kingdom and affect every one of its inhabitants. The hero counted on Remington's future influence as the head of the Narzo clan, whose growing strength could counter the might of the Ragnars at the decisive moment. The hero's hopes were fully realized when Remington gave a firm promise to support him in all future endeavors and follow him without hesitation. The unexpected appearance of armed law enforcement officers at the door of the pub interrupted this important conversation and disturbed the calm atmosphere of the establishment. The guards presented an official document with charges against Theo, demanding his immediate arrest for serious crimes against the authorities. An alarmed Evelina received reassuring words from the hero, who calmly walked towards the guards to examine the document. Having carefully examined the warrant, the hero noted the authenticity of the seal and the freshness of the ink, which indicated the urgency of his arrest and the seriousness of the situation. The hero's calm behavior while being handcuffed and his subsequent departure under escort struck everyone present as unusual. The hero's last smile, noticed by Evelina and Remington, clearly indicated his readiness for such a turn of events and the presence of a secret plan. Remington, looking at the paper he received from the hero, began to understand that it contained important instructions on how to help his arrested ally. The news of the arrest reached the Rose Palace and deeply shocked Cecilia, who could not believe the reality of what was happening to her son. The news of the upcoming tribunal undermined Cecilia's strength, who learned from her butler about the serious accusation against her son of inciting rebellion. The mother's heart refused to believe in the possibility of a real trial of her son, despite the seriousness of the charges brought against him by the authorities. The butler explained the gravity of the situation, which involved the complete destruction of the scaled dragon community, which demanded just retribution. Cecilia considered the unexpected consequences of inviting her son into the community, but continued to believe in his strength and ability to overcome difficulties. Warm rays of sunlight illuminated the window where Cecilia patiently awaited the return of her son, hoping for his quick release. The hero's journey, accompanied by guards, took place in complete calm, as if he were going on an ordinary walk around the city. Arriving at the tribunal's castle brought back memories of Theo's last visit to that majestic building of justice. The destruction of the scaled dragon community required a serious investigation, so a simple arrest would not be enough. The summoning of Ragnar's heir to the tribunal meant a serious test of his right to bear this high title and represent a noble family. Theo understood that his arrival at the tribunal was part of Axion's plan to finally break his resistance and destroy his influence. A confident smile never left the hero's face, as every action of the enemy fit perfectly into his own carefully thought-out plan. The massive doors of the tribunal swung open to knights announcing the arrival of the important prisoner Theo Ragnar in the courtroom. The determined look of the hero entering the tribunal hall showed his complete readiness to carry out his long-planned action plan. The large-scale tribunal scene was ideal for the realization of the grandiose plan that the hero had been hatching for a long time. A careful examination of those present confirmed the seriousness of the meeting, where the most influential people of the kingdom had gathered for an important decision. Among the familiar faces, the hero noticed Julius, dressed in the white armor of the commander of an elite squad of dragon riders. The hero's gaze fell on the director of Central Intelligence, known as Ed. Among the dignitaries present was the dragon sword of the Plum Blossom Palace, Osa Ragnar, who was watching the proceedings closely. The presence of 4 of Ragnar's 9 legendary dragon guardians indicated the exceptional importance of the upcoming trial. The hero's calmness in the present moment was strikingly different from his emotional state in a past life under similar circumstances. Wolfgang was the first to break the silence with a greeting, which the hero responded to with due respect, expressing regret at the unfortunate circumstances of the meeting. Wolfgang's disdainful gaze directed at the hero clearly expressed his attitude towards half-breeds and illegitimate children in noble families. The head of the council resolutely demanded that Theo admit his responsibility for the crimes committed against the established order. Wolfgang's angry speech listed all the clans and communities that had severed ties with the main family due to Theo's actions, demanding answers for the damage done. The hero listened to all the accusations with surprising calm, ironically agreeing with the statement about his dishonesty before the assembly. The hero's unexpected statement about his desire to execute traitors instead of simply punishing them struck everyone present with its harshness. The reminder of the sacred bonds between a lord and his subjects, based on honor and loyalty, sounded like an indictment against the accusers themselves. The hero's final words about the unacceptable impudence of his subjects, who dared to threaten their master, caused the hall to freeze in tense silence. In a firm voice, the hero continued his thought, declaring that the immediate execution of the traitors at the scene of their crime would be a just punishment for the restoration of the sacred principles of chivalry. The 1,000-year-old honor of the Ragnar family required protection, and as its rightful representative, the hero could not allow anyone to trample on the ancient traditions of his noble family. Watching the proceedings with undisguised interest, Julius noted the boy's impressive confidence, assuming that everything would end for him with the usual disciplinary punishment. The council leader's angry reaction to Theo's words was interrupted by the unexpected support of Osa Ragnar, who acknowledged the theoretical correctness of the young man's arguments. The wise dragon warrior emphasized an important truth. The true greatness of Clan Ragnar lay not only in its military might and wealth. Developing her thought, Osa Ragnar explained the need to listen to the voices of vassals and knights, emphasizing that it is impossible to maintain power over the world through tyranny alone. The presence of the clan head's first wife, a renowned swordswoman of the north, caused the hero internal uneasiness, although her benevolent gaze somewhat calmed his worries. The hero's head was filled with questions about the reasons for the renowned warrior's indifference to the plight of the Rose Palace during these difficult times of trial. Osa Ragnar's stern warning about the inevitability of his well-deserved punishment forced the hero to peer closely into the faces of the assembled judges. The solemn silence of the hall was broken by the voice of the head of the council, who announced the decision on a 3-month novitiate as a form of punishment for the disobedient heir. In a calm tone, the hero reminded the High Assembly of the approaching awakening ceremony, which only required 2 months of important preparation. Wasp Ragnar's intervention softened Wolfgang's anger when she explained the council's decision to postpone the hero's participation in the awakening ceremony until the next calendar year. An additional decision of the council was to include 15 affected children in the list of participants in the upcoming awakening ceremony of the next significant year. The attentive Ed noted the unexpectedly lenient punishment thanks to the intercession of the demonic dragon, realizing that postponing the ceremony would create an excuse for the submission of the Rose Palace. Reflecting on the situation, Ed was confident in the boy's prudence, believing that he would not risk appealing the tribunal's decision under the threat of fatal consequences of such a choice. An unexpected turn of events shattered all of Ed's calculations when the hero immediately filed a formal motion to appeal the tribunal's decision. The hero's sudden decision caused immediate wariness among the dragons present, which served as a source of hidden amusement for the observant Ed. The young man's self-confidence seemed to Ed to be an act of incredible stupidity. going beyond all reasonable limits of common sense and caution. An agitated Julius approached the hero with an important question about his understanding of all the possible consequences of the appeal filed against the tribunal's decision. The hero's clear understanding of the fact that such a decision usually entails a much more severe punishment than simple obedience surprised those present. Julius' concern for the young man's fate manifested itself in his attempt to warn the hero against a rash decision that could destroy his future. The hero's calm response about his readiness for war as a consequence of the objection in the proud Ragnar clan showed his full understanding and acceptance of all possible consequences. A confident smile never left the hero's face as he reminded those present that history is always written by the victors, expressing impatience in anticipation of the coming events. A sudden system notification alerted the hero to the start of a new scenario that would reveal many secrets and mysteries of this mysterious world. The heir's difficult test became the first plot task that the hero had to overcome on the way to achieving his main goal. At that very moment, a fierce battle was unfolding in the secret northern branch of the Trade Guild, involving Evelina and Remington against unknown opponents. The successful conclusion of the battle allowed Remington to discover the carefully hidden documents in the very place that the insightful Mr. Theo had indicated in advance. The evidence they discovered gave them confidence in the inevitability of the collapse of the Camellia Palace, whose secret plans had now been revealed thanks to their efforts. The self-confident Ed, anticipating the quick elimination of his unwanted adversary, did not even suspect the existence of compromising materials that could ruin his plans. The young man's willingness to exchange the relatively light punishment of noviceship for a full-scale war between clans caused bewilderment among those present. Despite the general doubt about the hero's ability to resist the combined forces of 15 powerful clans, he remained confident in the successful resolution of the problem. The significant difference in military power between the opposing sides required a special representative battle to be held in accordance with the ancient laws of the Ragnar clan. The hero's profound knowledge of the law impressed Julius, who understood the difference between a simple appeal demanding war and a representative battle. The special nature of the situation, caused by the significant inequality of forces, required a duel between elected representatives of the parties to achieve a fair resolution of the conflict. The obvious assumption that Theo was acting as a representative of the defense did not raise any doubts among the members of the High Court Assembly present. The general opinion was that the prosecution would most likely be represented by the hero's implacable enemy, the powerful Axion. Knowing the outstanding skill of both potential participants in the duel forced Julius to reflect on the hidden trump cards that the hero had saved for the decisive battle. Naive expectations of support from Julius or Evelina as representatives seemed unlikely to the experienced warrior and capable of leading to bitter disappointment. In a confident voice, the hero announced the upcoming selection of representatives for the decisive battle in a week, according to the ancient laws and traditions of the Ragnar clan. The hero's tactical plan to recruit Julius or Evelina as his representatives became transparent to everyone present. A realistic assessment of the characters of the potential representatives led those gathered to the inevitable conclusion that Theo would have to personally participate in the decisive duel. Ed's strategic calculation was to nominate Axion as the prosecution's representative in order to teach a harsh lesson to the entire Rose Palace through Theo's possible death. The unexpected appearance of the stranger interrupted the discussion, when he noted with undisguised surprise the amazing changes in Theo's once simple character. The majestic figure of Kyle Ragnar appeared in the doorway as the clan leader noted with obvious approval the cunning of his changed son's plans. The instant kneeling of all present in the hall demonstrated the deep respect for the appearance of the great head of the Ragnar clan. Theo's respectful bow was accompanied by a greeting to his father as the embodiment of the great dragon deity. According to the ancient traditions of their powerful clan, the sudden appearance of a new system quest connected with the capture of the Camellia Palace and the revelation of its secrets caught the hero at this solemn moment. A sudden memory of a mysterious blue light in the palace window awakened in the hero's memory important details that had been missed in the whirlwind of recent events. Understanding the significance of the discovered phenomenon required a thorough investigation, but the current situation forced the hero to focus on more pressing issues. The unexpected appearance of his father made significant adjustments to the hero's carefully thought-out plan, requiring immediate adaptation to the changed circumstances. The hero's keen interest in the reasons for his father's appearance was met with an authoritative order to rise, demonstrating the clan leader's usual manner of communication. The clan leader's awareness of the current situation and his son's decision to resort to a representative battle testified to his attentive attitude towards what was happening. The obvious difficulty of the upcoming test for the young heir made those present doubt his ability to withstand the representative battle. The clan leader's attentive gaze expressed genuine interest in the identity of the potential representative his son planned to select for the duel. The hero's frank admission that there were no willing representatives to represent his interests in the battle was accompanied by a firm intention to personally participate in the duel. His father's insight suggested the inevitability of his son's defeat, but the young man's determination forced him to refrain from hasty conclusions. The hero's unwavering determination to resist unfair demands and his willingness to fight to the end demonstrated the true character of the Ragnar clan representative. The clan leader's sincere laughter expressed paternal pride in his son, whose words and actions fully reflected the true spirit of the Ragnar family. The clan leader's satisfaction with his son's position was expressed in a bow of gratitude, which came as a surprise to everyone present in the tribunal hall. The hero's inner thoughts revealed his true attitude towards the representative battle, which he considered only a distraction in his complex game. The hero's carefully prepared plan relied on finding evidence of betrayal at the Camellia Palace, entrusted to his loyal comrades Remington and Evelina. The hero's confidence in victory was based on the evidence he had collected, making direct combat an optional element of his cunning strategy. The clan leader's unexpected proposal to test his son's abilities with a special test opened up new possibilities for resolving the current situation. The father's generous offer to clear his son of all charges in exchange for his ability to withstand a single blow demonstrated his special favor. Ed's sudden intervention, protesting the clan leader's proposal, exposed a hidden conflict within the top leadership. An insightful analysis of the situation allowed Ed to realize the deeper meaning of Kyle's proposal as a public recognition of his son as a worthy heir. The possible approval of the clan leader, expressed through a trial by a single blow, could radically change the hero's position in the hierarchy of the Ragnar clan. Despite his doubts about Theo's ability to pass the test, Ed was determined to prevent even the slightest possibility of him passing the test. Ed's diplomatic attempt to insist on a representative battle was accompanied by hypocritical assurances of the heir's undoubted nobility of blood. The clan leader's angry reaction to the vassal's brazen intervention was accompanied by an unambiguous threat of immediate reprisal for the disrespect shown. Kyle's close attention to the celestial dragon's behavior noted an inappropriate chuckle that echoed through the tense atmosphere of the tribunal hall. The calm remark of Julius, who had risen, emphasized the unusualness of the interest shown by the head of the clan, which was uncharacteristic of his usual behavior. The clan leader's friendly smile in response to Julius's words gave way to a serious question to his son about his readiness to accept the difficult test. The hero's instant realization of the complete destruction of his original plan was accompanied by an understanding of the need to adapt to unexpected changes. The hero's inner satisfaction with the opportunities that had opened up almost revealed itself in a slight smile, which he tried to hide from those present. The tactical comparison between the difficulty of war with vassals and the test of a blow from the clan leader underscored the hero's deep understanding of the seriousness of the proposal. Skillful negotiation allowed the hero to put forward a counter-demand for increased compensation, commensurate with the increased difficulty of the test. The hero's bold offer to receive the Camellia Palace as compensation was made with a meaningful look in the direction of the worried Ed. Wolfgan's undisguised shock at the hero's reckless courage reflected the general bewilderment of the members of the high tribunal present. The audacity of the half-breed, who dared to negotiate with the head of the clan as an equal, violating centuries-old traditions, caused general indignation. Kyle's unexpected agreement to his son's terms was accompanied by a wise remark about the need for a training ground like the Camellia Palace for the future heir. The clan leader's piercing gaze directed at Ed, accompanied by a question about possible objections, created a tense atmosphere in the tribunal hall. The obvious hopelessness of Ed's situation in the face of the absolute power of the clan Lord Ragnar forced him to remain silent, despite his internal disagreement with what was happening. The clan leader's determined determination to immediately test his son led to the urgent preparation of a special platform for a demonstration of strength right in the tribunal hall. The onlookers gathered around the site noted the particular tension in Ed, whose carefully prepared trap had unexpectedly turned into an opportunity for the young hero to rise. Ed's continued confidence in the Spawn's inability to withstand the clan leader's blow helped him remain calm in the rapidly changing situation. The well-known difficulty of resisting the leader's blow, even for experienced high-ranking swordsmen, strengthened Ed's confidence in the inevitable death of the overconfident youth. The hero's inner understanding of Ed's thoughts and hopes was accompanied by a calm confidence in the inevitable collapse of these expectations thanks to careful preparation. The reward received for completing the training gave the hero confidence in his abilities, which was the reason for his immediate agreement to the clan leader's proposal. Kyle's insight allowed him to notice his son's unexpected strengthening, as if caused by a magical elixir, but this detail seemed unimportant to him in the context of the test. The clan leader's remarkable powers of observation, surpassing those of 9 dragons, did not escape the hero's attention, forcing him to overestimate his father's abilities. The head's practical approach to assessing abilities, based on the understanding that enhancement is impossible without initial potential, was evident in his proposal to begin testing immediately. Kyle's generous decision to use a regular steel sword instead of his usual two-handed one was explained by the hero's inability to fully manage mana at the moment. The lack of objections to the choice of weapon allowed the clan leader to immediately begin demonstrating his strength, preparing to deal the decisive blow to his heir. The incredible pressure of the clan leader's fighting spirit, which forced many present to retreat, did not prevent the hero from confidently standing on his feet, causing his father's surprise. A confident smile appeared on the hero's face, thanks to the almost complete restoration of strength achieved with the help of a special reward for successfully completing the training. Using a rare experience elixir allowed the hero to gain 5 additional levels, all of which were invested in increasing physical strength. The hero's inner feeling told him that, with his new indicators, he was finally ready to overcome the boundaries of the ordinary world and enter an amazing realm of extraordinary possibilities. Careful preparation to repel his father's attack included choosing the correct fighting stance, determining the trajectory of the blow, and maximizing the tension of all muscles to withstand the blow. Successfully resisting the clan leader's attack, despite the destruction of his clothes and weapons, became undeniable proof of the true strength of the young heir of the Ragnar clan. The father's genuine joy at finally finding a worthy son was expressed in the open smile that lit up his usually stern face during the important test. The clan leader's solemn announcement of Theo Ragnar's innocence being proven by his own willpower marked the successful completion of the unexpected test before the High Assembly. Instantly receiving the reward inventory and the mysterious blue key served as confirmation of completing the unexpectedly appearing quest at a critical moment in the trial. The hero's sudden awakening in his own bed next to his worried mother, who was waiting for him to regain consciousness after the grueling ordeal, created a moment of warm reunion. The mother's excited story of the horror she experienced upon learning of her son's loss of consciousness after being struck by the clan leader was accompanied by anxious questions about his well-being. The hero's confused look, trying to determine his location, was met with understanding support from Julius, who appeared, ready to clarify the situation. Julius's important announcement about the liberation of the Camellia Palace by the former owner and director of the intelligence agency on the orders of the clan leader sounded like a victory bell. The hero's surprised realization of the meaning of Julius's words was confirmed by his satisfied smile. From now on, the majestic Camellia Palace belonged entirely to the young heir. The system notification that 50% progress had been made in completing the mission after gaining control of the palace marked an important stage in the development of events. The remaining part of the mysterious mission, connected with the disclosure of an ancient secret, required further decisive action and thorough investigation from the hero. Aimila's violent indignation, unable to come to terms with the forced renunciation of her property by the mistress of the palace, Camellia, reflected the depth of the shock from the changes that had taken place. The futile attempts of the maids to calm the enraged lady demonstrated the seriousness of her emotional state after the unexpected loss of power over the palace. Aimila's brother's outward calm concealed a cruel order to Axion to eliminate Theo by any means necessary, revealing the true depth of his hatred for the young heir. Ed's original plan to cut off Theo's hand during the awakening ceremony no longer satisfied his growing thirst for revenge after his unexpected defeat in the fight for the palace. Ed's new demand of Axion involved the public beheading of Theo over a sacred target, which was to be the final humiliation of the young heir of the Ragnars. The hero's leisurely stroll through the magnificent palace was accompanied by reflections on the unexpectedly favorable outcome of events, which allowed him to get what he wanted without using his trump card. The hero's attention was drawn to a new, unusual inventory system, which he received as an additional device after successfully completing his father's test. An experimental test of the inventory's capabilities using an ordinary apple confirmed the amazing practicality of this magical storage system. A careful examination of the blue key retrieved from the inventory revealed its special nature as a consumable item designed to open the mysterious gates to the dungeon. A sudden revelation came to the hero while examining the blue key, suggesting its undoubted connection with the secrets of Camellia's palace and the mysteries hidden within it. The hero's attention was drawn to an unusual door, decorated with mysterious magical patterns that seemed to glow with a mysterious light in the semi-darkness of the corridor. Behind the door, which the magic key managed to open, a huge cave opened up, the vaults of which were lost in the darkness, and the walls reflected the dim light of the torches. Joy filled the hero's heart when the system rewarded him with double experience for the first time he discovered this mysterious dungeon in the palace. Although the appearance of a huge cave inside the palace seemed incredible, the hero understood that this was part of a new test that he had to pass. Following the hints of the magic system, the young hero decided to explore the dungeon completely in order to receive the promised reward of double experience. A wise thought came to the hero before the dangerous journey. He filled his magical inventory with various weapons, preparing for any surprises in the cave. The first inhabitant of the dungeon to meet the hero was a huge snow-white wolf with eyes burning with rage, who appeared from the darkness of the cave. The size of the monstrous wolf amazed the hero. The beast was so large that it could be compared to the legendary demonic creatures from ancient tales. When the huge beast rushed to attack, only the strong shield, prudently taken by the hero with him, saved him from the sharp fangs of the demonic wolf. Having assessed the strength of his opponent, the hero realized that even such a powerful beast would not be able to surpass him in physical strength after his recent training. The real battle began between the hero and the monstrous wolf, and the first blows showed that the beast's skin was surprisingly strong and impenetrable. The snow-white wolf's incredible speed required the hero to give his all in battle. Only by fighting at full strength could he hope to inflict damage on the enemy. This mighty wolf was clearly different from ordinary forest predators, although it did not resemble the famous demonic beasts from legends and tales. The wolf's strength reminded the hero of the mighty creatures that dwelled beyond the Great Northern Wall, which explained the difficulty of the fight with this unusual opponent. In the heat of battle, the hero hoped to see the same magical ray of light that had helped him withstand his father's blow during the recent test of strength. Memories of the duel with his father led the hero to the understanding that even one blow from a great warrior can decide the outcome of a battle if the enemy is not strong enough. An epiphany came to the hero. Victory was possible only with complete dedication in one decisive blow, for which he threw aside his shield and used the secret art of the sword. Using a special movement technique, the hero managed to get close enough to the wolf and deliver a precise blow to the monster's eye, weakening its defenses. This small victory gave the hero confidence in his own strength, and he continued the battle against the powerful enemy with renewed enthusiasm. 2 months flew by, and now a crowd of people gathered at the 4th training ground, eager to see the famous hero. Rumors of Theo's ability to withstand the clan leader's mighty blow attracted so many people willing to fight him that the training ground could barely accommodate everyone gathered. An impatient Henry approached Sybil with a question about Theo, who had been absent from training for an unusually long time, although he had never missed them before. Unkind thoughts came to Henry, and he assumed that Theo was simply afraid of the increased attention to his person and decided to run away from responsibility. Doubts tormented Henry. Although the hero managed to escape punishment, the lack of witnesses to his exploits suggested that his achievements were exaggerated. Faithful Sybil could not tolerate slander against his master, and defending his honor, struck a strong blow to the offender's face, forcing him to shut up. Henry's friends were dismayed, unable to believe that simple Sybil had dared to raise his hand against their comrade, who was considered an unquestionable authority. Hundreds of angry eyes turned towards Henry and his friends, and only by a huge effort of will did those present restrain their desire to punish their hero's offenders. Sybil's angry words echoed in the silence as he called Henry and his comrades unworthy of even being near his noble lord. Bitterness and resentment were heard in Sybil's voice when he reproached the offenders for their unworthy behavior and insult to the absent master. Taking on the role of leader, Sybil urged his comrades to prepare for a real battle against the arrogant opponents of their master. The sudden appearance of a mysterious girl who stopped the battle with the power of ice caused both sides of the conflict to freeze in place in amazement. Everyone gathered immediately recognized the girl as the famous Ray Ragnar, nicknamed the Ice Sword, one of the legendary 4 hounds of the north. Next came the mighty Halkus, nicknamed Black Bear, also of the 4 hounds, who asked with playful reproach why he had not been invited to join in the fun. A distressed Halkus's gaze slid across the crowd searching for someone, and he asked those gathered about the whereabouts of the mysterious shiny tiger. No one understood who the mighty warrior was looking for until it turned out that he was calling Theo, the head of the training ground, the shining tiger. At that very time, far away in the dungeon, the hero was resting, sitting on a defeated monster and thinking about his next actions in this dangerous place. During his time in the dungeon, the hero defeated 170 demonic beasts, significantly increasing his level and strength. Having reached the 15th level of development, the hero felt his strength increase significantly, making all the effort spent exploring the dungeon worth it. Preparing for new battles, the hero took out from his magical inventory a healing potion for the novice, which had saved his life more than once in dangerous situations. Looking back on his journey, the hero realized how with each new level the battles became easier, and his skills and strength continued to grow. As he neared the end of his journey through the dungeon, the hero realized that the final and most difficult test lay ahead of him: a battle with the chief keeper of these caves. As he climbed the ancient stone staircase, the young warrior regretfully noticed that his faithful sword, which had been with him through many battles, had finally broken in the last battle. After the broken sword was set aside, the hero took out his last weapon from his magical inventory, a beautiful ceremonial sword given to him by his loving mother. Bitter memories of his past life washed over the hero as he recalled how he had neglected his mother's gift, allowing the beautiful blade to become covered in rust. Now, carefully examining the magnificent weapon, the hero understood the true value of his mother's gift. The sword was a true work of art made of rare, snow-white steel. Fond memories of his previous birthday filled the hero's heart with warmth. He remembered how his mother and servants came to congratulate him at midnight, bearing many carefully chosen gifts. Bitterness filled the hero's heart when he remembered his previous arrogance. He rejected his mother's care, citing preparations for the awakening ceremony and unwillingness to waste time. The cruel words with which he had once wounded his mother's heart now hurt him. He remembered how he had reminded his mother that no gifts would change his origin. A strong determination filled the hero's heart. No matter what awaited him ahead, no matter what trials he had to overcome, he would never repeat the mistakes of the past or offend his mother. A sudden system alert interrupted the hero's thoughts, warning him of the entrance to the lair of the dungeon's chief keeper, the most powerful demonic beast in these caves. The hero was astonished when, instead of the wolf he expected, he saw a majestic creature, a real dragon, sleeping peacefully in the depths of a spacious cave. The deeper meaning of the final test began to become clear to the hero. The presence of the dragon was clearly connected to the ancient history of the Ragnar clan, whose ancestors traced their lineage to these powerful creatures. Despite his uncertainty about the nature of this mysterious connection, the hero understood that only defeating the dragon would allow him to complete his task and uncover the secrets of Camellia's palace. Even with incredible strength and fortitude, somewhere deep down the hero felt anxiety before the upcoming battle with the legendary creature from ancient tales. Carefully considering his battle strategy, the hero decided to begin with the flash technique, which he had successfully honed in numerous fights with wolves on his way to the main enemy. Although he knew his skill had not yet reached the level of his father's Dragon Flash, the hero still hoped that he would be able to effectively use this technique in the upcoming battle. The hero placed particular hope in the power of his Dragon Heart, believing that its might would help inflict serious damage on a powerful enemy at the decisive moment of the battle. The suddenly awakened dragon, despite the hero's successful first attack, was not going to give up easily and immediately went on the offensive, using its powerful tail as a weapon. Disappointment overcame the hero when he realized that his attempt to hit the dragon's brain was not effective enough due to the insufficient penetration depth of the blow. Watching the enraged dragon lose its composure after the unexpected attack, the hero saw in the enemy's fury an opportunity to achieve a long-awaited victory. The hero's carefully thought-out plan included the use of a secret technique called Death Steps, which allowed him to deliver lightning-fast strikes to the enemy's vulnerable spots. The hero's cunning strategy was to distract the dragon with a normal attack, but the creature's powerful roar, which caused an intimidation effect, ruined the original plan. The fear effect inflicted by the dragon significantly reduced the hero's movement speed, making it impossible for him to dodge the rapidly approaching deadly attack. Despite being unable to completely avoid the blow, the hero managed to partially defend himself with his blade, but the serious injuries he sustained required a quick end to the battle. Overcoming the pain, the hero rose to his feet again and resolutely continued the battle, carefully searching for weak spots in the defense of the powerful enemy. The hero's keen gaze noticed a special spot on the dragon's neck, known as the reverse scale, a place that could become the key to the long-awaited victory. A precise sword strike to a vulnerable spot caused the dragon to let out a deafening roar and weaken its defenses, but this was not enough for final victory. Meanwhile, on the training grounds, Theo's loyal followers, frozen weapons in hand, watched the furious argument between the mighty warriors Rei and Hulkus. A heated argument broke out between the warriors over who would be the first to fight Theo, with Rei reminding Hulkus of her previous victory over him in a duel. Rei's words deeply hurt Hulkus's pride, reminding him that his defeat had happened 3 years ago and that his fighting skills had improved significantly since then. Rei's unyielding stance, based on her past victory, only increased the tension between the warriors, who were unwilling to give up the right to the first duel with the young heir. Annoyed by Rei's stubbornness, Hulkus pointed his sword at her and proposed an immediate new duel to determine who would be the first to face Theo Ragnar. Rei's astonishing skill was demonstrated in her lightning-fast repulsion of the enemy's unexpected attack, demonstrating the legendary warrior's supreme level of martial arts. The tense standoff was interrupted by the timely intervention of the judicious Remington, who reminded them of the need to hold such duels in a more suitable place. Concerned about maintaining order in his master's domain, Remington reminded the soldiers of the inadmissibility of causing disorder in the absence of the young ruler Theo. Ignoring Remington's admonitions, an inspired Hulkus joyfully announced his desire to fight him as well, adding another participant to the upcoming duels. A sudden silence fell among the disputants as they felt the powerful pressure of the murderous aura emanating from Theo, who had suddenly appeared. Remington's amazement was boundless. He could not believe how much his young master's power had increased during 2 months of solitary training. Unlike the others, Hulkus greeted Theo's appearance with undisguised joy, even when the young warrior activated his impressive skill, Inferior Drake Intimidation. Returning to the conclusion of the great battle in the dungeon, after the hero's decisive attack, the mighty dragon fell to the ground lifeless, marking the end of this epic battle. The hero's attentive gaze continued to follow the defeated enemy, who, after a precise blow to the reverse scale, thrashed about with such fury that every movement threatened death. A feeling of relief filled the hero as he lay down on the scaly body of the tired dragon, rejoicing in his guess about the vulnerability of the dragon's scales, which became the key to victory. A short rest was interrupted by a system notification about the receipt of special trophies, a tooth and claw of a lesser drake, which became a reward for victory over a powerful enemy. The resulting precious materials possessed amazing properties. A dragon's tooth could enhance the strength of a weapon, and its claw gave the blade incredible sharpness. Looking at the sword his mother had given him, which had been damaged in a fierce battle with a dragon, the hero decided to use the materials he had obtained to restore his favorite weapon. A pleasant surprise was the acquisition of a new skill, Intimidation of the Lesser Drake, which allows one to create the same powerful pressure that the defeated dragon possessed. Joy filled the hero's heart from acquiring a rare skill that he had never even dared to dream of, since only a few chosen warriors received such a gift. Carefully placing the acquired treasures into the magical inventory, the hero thought about how the new skill could help him in the future trials of the Ragnar clan. The hero's understanding of the importance of careful preparation never left him, as he would face many of the clan's outstanding warriors in the upcoming battles. The heavy doors of the ancient dungeon closed behind the hero, marking the successful completion of an important mission, the capture of Camellia's palace and the uncovering of its secret. A special reward for completing the task was a mysterious item, the Dragon's Nest Compass, whose purpose remained a mystery to the hero. The hero's intuition told him that the compass he had received would certainly be useful in the next task, although how to use it remained unclear. Feeling extremely tired after 2 months of grueling training, the hero decided to first put the compass in his inventory and rest in his room. A sudden encounter with an agitated maid disrupted the hero's plans for relaxation. She reported an urgent incident that required his immediate attention. The alarming news of a serious fight at the 4th training ground could not leave the hero indifferent, forcing him to postpone his long-awaited rest. Arriving at the scene, the hero used his new skill, enveloping Henry and his followers in a powerful pressure, ordering them to leave the area immediately. The sight of the tired hero did not faze the inspired Hulkus. Feeling the powerful pressure, he immediately rushed into the attack, wanting to test the strength of the young warrior. The amazing ease with which the hero parried Hulkus's powerful blow amazed everyone present with its ease and grace of movement. The incredible skill the hero displayed in repelling the attack amazed not only Hulkus and the other hounds, but also Theo himself, who acted as if on instinct. Black Bear, considered the weakest of the four northern hounds due to his lack of unique techniques, still remained a formidable opponent thanks to his noble origins. The hero's keen eye immediately spotted a weak spot in the enemy's defense, allowing him not only to easily parry his attack, but also to carry out a successful counterattack. The hero's new 16th level of development became the key to his superiority over an experienced opponent in this unexpected duel. The hero was overcome with anxiety when, after his blow, the mighty Hulkus fell lifelessly to the ground, forcing him to think about the possible consequences of his power. The unintentional use of all his power in a blow worried the hero, although the enemy's well-known vitality gave hope for a successful outcome of the duel. The air was filled with the cheers and applause of his subordinates, praising the strength of the young master who had managed to defeat the famous Black Bear with one blow. While the hero was calming the jubilant crowd, his faithful sword, exhausted by previous battles, could not withstand the strain and crumbled into small pieces. Deep anxiety gripped the hero at the sight of his mother's destroyed gift, although those around him perceived this as further proof of his incredible strength. Rei's intent gaze, never leaving the hero, revealed the warrior's deep thoughtfulness, immersed in memories of the distant past. A long-ago encounter with little Theo remained etched in Rei's memory. Back then, the young hero was surprised by her light clothing in the cold weather and decided to help the frozen girl. The boy's touching concern was expressed in a simple gesture. He tied his red scarf around the girl's neck, trying to protect her from the piercing cold. Genuine concern led young Theo to invite the frozen girl into his home, promising to bring her home after the snowfall ended. The warm memories brought a slight smile to Rei's usually serious face, and she then quietly left the scene, lost in her thoughts. Only the observant Theo noticed the unusual change in the stern warrior's mood, knowing her reputation as a person who never shows emotions. A joyful event brought all the servants together. They came to congratulate the young master on receiving the honorary title of Shining Tiger. The maid's sincere pride in the young master's success was accompanied by good wishes for him not to stop there and to continue his diligent training. His loving mother, Cecilia, prepared a special treat for her son: rare shellfish from the Idris Sea, cooked in oil from the Fugai Mountains, and poultry fed on select nuts. The hero's heart softened at the sight of his mother's care, and he could not refuse her the joy of treating his beloved son to special dishes. Bitter memories of a past life, when he rejected his mother's love, made the hero especially appreciate the current moments of closeness, thanking his mother for her care. The moment of truth came when it was time to show his mother the broken sword she had given him. The hero apologized with sincere remorse for the loss of the precious gift. The mother's reaction was unexpected. Instead of reproaching her son, she expressed indignation at the saleswoman who sold her a low-quality blade. After all, the owner of the workshop assured her that since the sword was made of snow-white steel and ebony steel wood, it would never break. Even the hero was surprised to hear about the ebony steel wood from the southern jungles, and Cecilia explained contentedly that this sword was supposed to be made only from rare and precious materials. But this was clearly a lie. Otherwise, the sword wouldn't have broken so easily. The hero was clearly worried when he heard how valuable his sword was, because the ebony steel tree is a plant whose roots grow around iron, making the material flexible like wood and hard like steel. Although the hero knew that his blade was truly good, he did not know how expensive it was. He wondered where his mother got it, but the woman firmly stated that she would not put up with such a thing and would go demand an explanation. And this time she would get the perfect sword for her son. The hero tried to explain that he could use other things, but Cecilia was adamantly against it. After all, now that people had finally realized what her son was worthy of, they needed to be more meticulous than ever. Besides, there was less than a week left until the awakening ceremony, and she couldn't allow her son to attend the ceremony with a dull steel blade. And since the situation was so out of the ordinary, she decided to immediately go get a new sword. As it turned out, the woman knew where the best workshop in the entire capital was located. It was the Basque Workshop. The Basque Workshop was one of 3 weapons workshops in the snow capital. The fame of this workshop is connected with its enormous size, comparable to a factory, as well as with a remarkable feature of its owner. Her identity was listed by the intelligence agency as a special rank person. She was a blacksmith with the title of Master Craftsman, a title held by only 2 other craftsmen of the Ragnar clan. The mistress was also known as the elven embodiment of capitalism, under the name of the demonic artisan Kirsten. Kirsten turned her attention to the unexpected guests, looking at the arrivals with surprise. The hero couldn't even imagine meeting such a magnate and couldn't understand how his mother knew the demonic artisan. Cecilia immediately greeted her mother, indignant that she hadn't quit smoking as she had planned. Kirsten was unhappy with this treatment and reminded Cecilia that their family relationship ended the day she ran away. The hero still could not comprehend the fact that his mother, whom he considered an orphan without a family, was somehow related to the demonic craftsman. He assumed she was the daughter of a half-elf, in which case Theo was 1/8 elf, which was perhaps what made him so attractive. Kirsten decided to ask Cecilia why she had come here for the first time in so long. She threw down her sword and said she wanted to return the defective goods. Such words about her work greatly angered Kirsten, because no one dared to claim that the sword forged by her personally was of poor quality. But when she tried to draw the sword from its sheath, its hilt remained in her hands. Cecilia explained that she considered the blade's breakage to be nothing more than a defect, but Kirsten understood that this was not the case and decided to personally see the owner of this sword. She realized it was Theo, Cecilia's son. The woman described her son as a true genius who would surely one day rule the entire Ragnar clan. Excited by such a meeting, the guy didn't immediately get his bearings, but soon, bending down, he introduced himself and admitted that it was a great honor for him to meet the famous owner of the Basque workshop. Returning the greeting, Kirsten admitted that she had already heard the fame circulating around Theo, and praised Cecilia for raising her son so that he knew manners. The only question she wanted to clarify was whether Theo was truly the only one who had used this sword. As soon as the hero confirmed her words, Cecilia explained that this was why she considered the blade to be of poor quality. Kirsten understood that the reason clearly lay elsewhere, so she decided that the three of them were in for a long conversation and led them inside the forge. While the demonic craftsman walked forward, seeing off the guests, the hero decided to ask his mother why she never told him that she was the daughter of a demonic craftsman. Looking at the two of them, the familial connection was hard to discern. Cecilia, seeing the hero's confusion, realized she had indeed missed many details about her past. Looking at Kirsten with a smile, she explained that for a short period of time, 6 months, the half-elf became her adoptive mother and took care of her. The reason was that her mother loved absolutely everything beautiful. This list included jewelry, music, theatrical performances, and even illusions. This was the reason Kirsten decided to take her in as an adoptive daughter. Hearing these thoughts, the woman asked to stop chatting about the past, which was pointless. Cecilia, who knew the woman well enough, only laughed because she could bet that she did not consider her words to be just chatter. Soon, the hero decided to find out why his mother had left this place, but Kirsten herself answered, explaining that she had run away, saying that she wanted to become the wife of the head of the clan. Remembering that day, Kirsten still couldn't understand why she had gone to such a miserable place voluntarily, because even the fact that she had survived until that time was worthy of praise. But Cecilia's dreamy nature only smiled, explaining her decision by the fact that the head of the clan, Ragnar, was so handsome, and besides, he was very dashing and courageous and truly loved her very much. Ignoring Cecilia's explanations, Kirsten recalled the moment when, despite her escape, her adopted daughter had appeared a year ago with pleas to forge a sword as a gift for her son, which, in her opinion, was truly shameless. Offended by such words, Cecilia began to ask her mother not to talk about such things in the presence of her son, after which a good-natured argument broke out. This did not frighten the hero at all. Looking at their conversation and arguments, he realized that this was the first time he had seen his mother like this. Moreover, he was saddened by the fact that throughout his entire past life he knew nothing about his mother. For this reason, he considered himself a shameless son who was too self-absorbed and obsessed. The hero saw that Kirsten, despite old grievances, genuinely cared for his mother. He wondered why she had done nothing when they were in danger in their past life. Finally, the demonic craftswoman stopped in front of the large office door. Cecilia clearly didn't understand why they had to go so deep inside for a simple conversation, and simply asked the woman to give them the best blade she had ever forged. But Kirsten didn't listen. Instead, she grabbed her son, dragged him into her office, and asked Cecilia to wait outside. Once they were inside, the woman looked at the boy with a stern gaze, and her only question was whether he had the primordial dragon relic. Without a hint of pretense, the guy just looked at the woman in surprise, not understanding why she was remembering the dragon protector ancestor who protected their clan. The hero had only heard the legend in his life that their founder had distributed the treasures of the primordial dragon throughout Snowy Land among the descendants of the Ragnar clan. Kirsten was incredibly offended by his words, because it was obvious that the boy was pretending to be ignorant. His words made no sense. If he didn't have any relic, then he couldn't turn her sword, which she forged with all her soul and heart, into such junk. She was confident in her creations and knew that it could not break simply from simple training. Suddenly, the woman called the guy over and showed him a box sealed with heavy and strong chains. Just one glance at the box was enough to notice the blue glow that was associated with the task. He saw a similar glow at the doors in the Camellia Palace that led to the dungeon. Looking at the guy's unusual expression, Kirsten realized that he clearly noticed something, although even she didn't feel anything unusual. As it turned out, she had tried more than once to break the chains and find out what was hidden inside this box, but it was all in vain. Therefore, placing the box right in front of the hero, she explained that most likely the relic of the primordial dragon, which appeared long ago in the Age of Myths, was kept here. Then the primordial dragon pulled out one of his fangs and forged a sword from it. It was a monstrous sword, the White Moonlight Blade. For this reason, she offered the hero a deal. If he could break the chains and extract it, she would give him the White Moonlight Blade. But she immediately warned the guy that everything would not be so easy, because he could even lose his life in the process of removing the sword, and she wanted to know if he was ready to take such a risk. Immediately after these words, a sly smile appeared on the hero's face, because he already wanted to take this sword for himself, and the task received from the system became confirmation that he was on the right path. From his past life, the hero knew very well that this sword was the blade of the leader of Black Snow and one of the 9 dragons named Black Dragon. However, very few knew what his sword looked like because almost everyone who saw or spoke of it died or went missing. By pure chance, the hero managed to cross paths with the Black Dragon in his past life, and he was able to see the true form of the White Moonlight Blade. After this meeting, the hero had many questions. Why did the man leave him alone alive? Now the hero understood. If the Black Dragon's White Moonlight Blade was here, and it truly was the original sword, then it was a tremendous stroke of luck. The fact that he was supposed to meet the Black Dragon in 4 years meant that the sword had been in Kirsten's possession until then. Moreover, the hero understood that history was repeating itself this time. Here, too, was the same keyhole as in Camellia's palace. In that case, the blue key would become his main assistant. As soon as the hero inserted the key into the lock and turned it, the chains quickly broke off the sealed chest, from which light immediately began to burst forth, a witness to the power of this blade. But this was not the end of the hero's ordeal. In addition to the light, a black smoke began to burst out of him, which eventually completely engulfed the hero's body, and no matter how hard Kirsten tried, she was unable to help him. Opening his eyes, the hero found himself in the very scene when Randall forced him to look at the body of his dead mother to show how incredibly weak he was. To prevent this, he needed as much power as possible, power to overcome Randall and crush Camellia's palace. But even at the moment when he was experiencing the most terrible moment of his life, he noticed the approach of a bird trying to attack. Closing her beak, he scolded her for trying to take over his mind. He realized that she planned to use his own thirst for power against him, and finally understood why the sword was called monstrous. The bird was outraged that some guy had managed to see through her plan so easily, but the hero calmly explained that she had failed to take over his body because he had long ago overcome the fear the sword had tried to instill in him. He couldn't understand if the bird really thought it could buy him off with a few meager bits of power when he already had his own goal. Moreover, the hero clearly noticed that this animal was different from the griffin Theo had encountered earlier. That one had been 10 meters tall, while now it was the same height as him. Most likely, the change in its size was due to its long imprisonment in the blade. But this played into the hero's hands because he could defeat him and finally earn the Blade of White Moonlight. Seeing the hero's serious intentions, the griffin suggested to his master that they discuss everything like civilized people and not resort to violence. All this time, Cecilia tried to wake up her son and looked at her mother in fear, trying to understand what had happened to the boy while she was gone and why he was in such a terrible state. After all she asked him to do was forge another sword for him, but instead Kirsten did something similar to him. The frightened woman was worried about something else. She felt the energy of the monster, which was connected with the hero's bloodstream, and she had never heard of anything like this before. In fact, despite the warning, she thought the boy would be fine since he already had the relic. At that moment, Cecilia, despite her tears, became much more determined and swore that she would never forgive her mother if something happened to her son. This clearly frightened Kirsten, but soon a terrifying power began to emerge and be released from the boy's body, which then just as quickly returned to his heart, completely absorbed by his body. At that moment, the hero finally managed to open his eyes, and immediately Cecilia began to hug her child and cry bitterly because she was worried that he would never wake up again. Returning his worried mother's embrace, the hero explained that such an ordeal could not have harmed him and asked her not to worry. The system congratulated him on successfully completing the Griffin hunt. The white moonlight blade was now his. But this was mostly due to luck, as the Griffin was weakened by its confinement, making it easy to defeat. Furthermore, the psychological attack hadn't worked on the hero. Suddenly, he received another notification from the system, informing him that with the white moonlight blade, he had increased his magic by 30 points. Now his magical power had exceeded 20 units, causing her to begin to acquire divinity. Then the hero finally realized that he had unexpectedly increased his level enough, and now his magical power had reached the level of a high-ranking swordsman. He felt sorry that he couldn't use all his magical power yet, because he had to restrain himself until the awakening ceremony. After making sure that the boy was okay, Kirsten congratulated him on completing the task and promised to keep her words, because elves could not lie. Suddenly, the hero noticed his blade was trembling. He worried that the sword still refused to acknowledge him as its owner. But Kirsten understood that the matter was different. The blade had been shackled for too long, and now that it was finally in their world, it was trying to release the pent-up irritation. After this, she pointed to the boy a wall with deep scratches and dents and invited him to test his blade by hitting the wall with all his strength. The hero didn't understand why Kirsten wasn't against it, since it could lead to serious destruction. But she knew that even if the white moonlight blade was in the hero's hands, he was still a boy who had not undergone the awakening ceremony, which was why he would never be able to damage the wall of her workshop. This attitude was a little irritating, so since he had the ability to hide his dragon heart at his own whim, he decided to take the opportunity to test the full power of the white moonlight blade. The hero gripped the hilt of his sword tighter and apologized in advance for the possibility that things might get out of control. After all, now, preparing his attack, he planned to use not only his own strength, but also to combine the strength of the blade itself with his magical power. Immediately after that, the system notified him that he had activated the power of the monstrous sword possessed by the Griffin, which was the true power of the dragon. The next moment, the entire wall was completely destroyed by just one blow from the hero, and the resulting crack that ran through the entire building became proof of his incredible strength. While Kirsten was trying to come to her senses after what she had seen, the hero realized how dangerous the weapon in his hands was. The sword literally began to absorb his magical power in order to deliver such a powerful blow. Because all of the hero's magical power had been absorbed, when the demonic craftswoman quickly approached the boy to check his magic, she found no trace of magical power in him at all. She couldn't understand how he had managed to achieve such a result solely through the sharpness of the blade itself, as it literally defied any laws of logic. The only conclusion the woman came to was that the man in front of her was a true genius. And since that genius was her grandson, she could find plenty of ways to use his fame to her advantage. So she immediately took the boy by the shoulder and declared that she would become his patron. In exchange for her protection, he would have to fully spread his wings and show the world what skills he possessed. Kirsten understood that such a person would become a living advertisement for the Biask workshop, which would be beneficial for both of them. Despite Theo's admiration for the proposal, Cecilia quickly discovered that her mother's eyes were completely filled with thoughts of money, so she was immediately caught in her little manipulation. Very soon, the carriage took Theo home, and Kirsten was left alone with Drake's two fangs. Theo voluntarily gave her these fangs as compensation for the wall he destroyed. Kirsten realized the boy had received a trophy from Drake along with the relic, and it also became clear that her daughter had raised an incredible son. Suddenly, the elf heard a familiar voice greeting the demonic artisan. Turning around, she saw the familiar figure of Ran and decided to find out what her old acquaintance was doing here. 5 more days passed after these events, and finally the day of the awakening ceremony arrived. The hero wasted no time honing his techniques and training with his teacher. Evelina immediately noticed her student's increased strength. His fencing skills had become much stronger and more dexterous. This didn't surprise the hero, as his mentor was Evelina herself. Even during the fierce battle, the woman could not shake the thought of how much had happened in 6 months and how Theo had begun to change. Now he was strong enough to confront her, and when he awakened his magical power, he would become literally invincible. So this day could truly be considered the birthday of a true monster. Finally, when the fight was over, Evelina praised the student for the great job he had done and assured him that he could be the best in this awakening ceremony. She believed in his success, and the hero sensed it too, for which he was incredibly grateful. Moreover, the boy promised to mention his teacher's name when he won the ceremony. Immediately after these words, a multitude of his followers gathered around the hero, who also wanted to have the honor of being mentioned by the idol himself, which only caused a slight grin on the hero's face. Soon, he had to leave the training grounds to head to the main residence, where the annual awakening was held. With the help of his mother, dressed in a formal uniform suitable for such an occasion, the hero of the Camellia Palace appeared before the gates. Looking at the assembled crowd, he understood why the people looked so excited. After all, the awakening ceremony was the most important event of the year for every Ragnar. Each participant dreamed of showing off well at the awakening ceremony, as this was the first place where they, as swordsmen of the Ragnar clan, could receive recognition and honor, especially considering that every member of the clan will be watching them, including the clan leader Kyle Ragnar himself. And moreover, the well-known 9 dragons and former clan heads were also required to be present at this event. It was the former head of the clan, Hilda Ragnar, who interested the hero because she didn't look like she was really 150 years old. Besides, the hero had a good relationship with Hilda, so he was really glad to see this woman under such circumstances. Finally, the judge, Dragon Gate swordsman Van Ragnar, who was responsible for announcing the preliminary exam, spoke to everyone gathered. During this test, participants had to pull out swords thrust into the arena and leave a mark on the top of a steel wall located on the platform. The man warned that the wall was made of snow-white steel, so ordinary swords would not even be able to scratch its surface. The situation only changes when magic is infused into the sword, so it will provide each participant with a special pill. One such pill contained magical powers equivalent to a 10-year supply, an elixir that would help each participant unlock their mana chambers. They had to consume the pill and open the mana streak in their dantian. Only then would they be able to cut through the wall of snow-white steel with ordinary swords. Moreover, the depth of the cut itself would be carefully measured and assigned a specific score. After all participants had familiarized themselves with the rules of the annual awakening, Van explained that the participants he would call upon were to approach, take their pill, and ascend the platform. Participant number 1 was Theo Ragnar, who immediately, without fear or embarrassment, stepped forward. After he easily pulled out the sword from the arena, he headed towards the platform, remembering that Axion had become the top graduate last time. But in this life, he was determined to change everything, and he had no other choice, as his mission literally forced him to become the winner of this awakening ceremony. Looking at the boy, former head Hilda immediately realized that, most likely, this was the same child that Kyle told her about. The man also noticed that his son had clearly attracted the woman's attention, but this was not surprising. After what the leader had said, she was curious to see how he would cope with this task. She believed that this exam should clearly show what talent this descendant of Ragnar's clan actually possessed. Before delivering his blow, the hero decided to stretch and calm down. Recalling the awakening ceremony from his past life, he remembered how nervous he had been. Finally, Van came over and told the boy that it was time to take the pill. The hero didn't resist, even though he remembered that in his past life, he had never been able to fully control the mana he'd received after swallowing the pill. This ultimately damaged his dantians even further. However, as soon as he swallowed the pill, all his worries vanished. He realized that the scenario of his past life would not repeat itself. Mana began to envelop his body. Van even considered that the hero was truly mad, since he summoned such powerful flows of mana that raised suspicions about his ability to control them. Everyone knew perfectly well that when swallowing a pill, one should carefully use the resulting magical power to allow the chambers to take hold in the dantian. It was also known that the more talented Ragnars had so much mana that if they could not control it, they simply became disabled. It was obvious that the matter seemed settled with this guy, but Van quickly took his words back because the hero was able to not only withstand the flow of mana, but also completely concentrate it in his body. Thus, he obtained not only the Dragon Heart, but also the mana halls, which made him much stronger. Despite this, the hero was slightly disappointed. Unlike in his previous life, he completed the task so easily that even he himself did not expect it. In any case, in the current situation it didn't matter at all, since from now on he could officially use mana. After using the pill, he had a much larger reserve of it, so all he needed to do now was to release all of his accumulated mana in one blow. The blow was so devastating that once the smoke cleared from the attack, it was immediately obvious to everyone. He had not only passed the test, but had passed it with incredible success. The onlookers looked quite shocked, as they had not seen anything like this since the time of young Master Thorkel, and it seemed incredible that such a result was demonstrated by someone who was using mana for the first time. After this, the hero received recognition from observers. His luck went from minus to 0. Thus, his curse of bad luck ended, and his fame began to spread throughout the world. The hero was overjoyed that he had finally managed to reach the point from which everyone else had begun to act, because in his particular case, this was a huge achievement. Moreover, the system warned the hero that many were interested in his talent. Even Wasp Ragnar wanted to make him her apprentice, which is why Julius was very unhappy with the amount of attention directed at the hero. Moreover, even Robert began to feel some apprehension towards him, and Hilda Ragnar showed an unprecedented interest in the boy. Looking at all these notifications, the hero realized that although the attention of the Black Dragon and the Dragon Sword was unexpected for him, the only person whose attention he was truly targeting was Hilda. So this announcement really pleased him. The reason for his interest was that Hilda had the heart of Garuda, and if the hero managed to get it, he would become invincible. Soon after, it was time for Sabine to demonstrate his powers, and he eventually managed to land a blow that was not as impressive, but sufficient to pass the test. Following Sybil were 3 of the 4 northern hounds, each of whom also had monstrous results. But even with all their strength, none of them managed to leave a mark even close to the results of the young master. By this point, only one student had not demonstrated his skills, Axion Ragnar, who was invited forward. Many observers and participants realized that a true competition between Shining Tiger and Dark Tiger was about to begin. Although many believed that even Axion couldn't replicate such a stunning performance, everyone was amazed by Shining Tiger's abilities. Hearing such admiration for his hated brother, Axion became incredibly furious. After swallowing the pill, the boy literally went berserk and attacked the wall with the same unprecedented force as Theo himself. The head judge simply watched in amazement, not expecting the contestants to continue surprising him until the very end. The trail left by Axion was almost indistinguishable from the trail left by Theo, so no one understood which of the two would ultimately emerge victorious. The only thing that could help determine a reliable result was an accuracy assessment. That's why, dissatisfied with his achievements, Axion simply decided to leave the stage. Finally, after all the results had been examined and evaluated, Van congratulated the participants on passing the first stage of the awakening ceremony and praised them for the many people who had shown excellent results. Afterwards, all those who had passed had to prepare for the second stage of the awakening ceremony, which would take place in 4 days. The grades, which the students were so eagerly awaiting, would also soon be announced. And of course, there was particular interest in who would take the lead in the first stage, whether it would be Theo or Axion. Finally, after a short wait, the results were announced. The winner was Theo Ragnar, who scored 10 out of 10 possible points, as his technique, magical power, and speed control were impeccable. Moreover, the depth of his sword's mark was comparable to the record of young Master Tarkel, and upon hearing this, no one could believe that Theo had actually equaled the results of such a legendary man. After all, Tarkel Ragnar was one of the 5 main candidates, those who were considered the most likely heirs. Second place went to Axion Ragnar, who also scored 10 points in all categories, but his sword trail was shorter than Theo's, which is why he took second place. Third place went to Remington Nartsov, followed by Ray Ragnar, Hulkus Lang, and the rest of the list. After all the locations had been announced, Van decided to inform those who had passed through about the second stage of the awakening ceremony. In 4 days, all 87 participants who had qualified were expected to arrive in the Winter Mountains fully prepared. At this point, the first stage was finally completed, so everyone was sent home. The hero, upon returning home, met with his friends, who praised Theo and Remington for their first and third place finishes, which showed the true strength of the 4th training ground. The guys sincerely thanked all their followers for their support, although the hero reminded them that this was not the end, as his goal was for them all to be able to pass the second stage. He also put an arm around Remington's shoulder and promised those present that he and his friend would be the final valedictorians and salutatorians. After such a bold announcement, the 2 boys were showered with thunderous applause. Finally, Evelina came over and congratulated the guys, but decided to clarify whether the hero was absolutely sure they could handle it, although in fact she had already known the answer for a long time. Remington decided to congratulate the young gentleman separately from everyone else on his excellent result, because it was nice to see that his efforts had borne fruit. However, he was deeply disappointed that he fell so far behind the hero in his results and only took 3rd place. But Theo's friendly smile reassured Remington. He explained to the boy that he was very lucky this time, and besides, he considered that they were real friends, so he didn't care about the result. These words truly inspired the young swordsman, so he thanked his master for the kind words that helped him clarify his doubts and thoughts. He suggested that Theo give it his all in the second stage as well, so that the results would exceed all expectations. Soon the hero decided to go to the Winter Mountains, and looking at the snow-capped peaks, the boy realized that he could not even dream of taking first place at the awakening ceremony. Even though he couldn't defeat Axion in direct combat, he still found it hard to believe that this wasn't a dream, but his new reality. But clearly, he shouldn't have gotten cocky at the start of his journey because stopping Randall was just the first step. After all, he was just an executor. The protagonist's real enemies were Axion and the Heavenly Dragon, so he had to use everything he had in order to completely avenge the events of his past life. He also pulled out his nest compass from his pocket, which had been guiding him toward the Winter Mountains all this time. It became clear that during the second stage, he would be able to clarify what nest they were talking about. Suddenly, the spy who was following the hero discovered that his target had disappeared somewhere in the blink of an eye and intended to follow him. But Theo's movement was only a diversionary tactic. He found himself a step away from the spy and, pointing his sword at his neck, demanded that he introduce himself. The excited boy raised his hands in surrender and, introducing himself, explained that he was a member of the Storm Swords platoon and that the platoon captain had sent him to observe the hero's performance at the awakening ceremony. As it turned out, their captain was offering the hero the opportunity to take an entrance qualification test. The hero was surprised that they were asking him to undergo a test rather than simply join, but the spy explained that their headquarters was famous for the fact that even getting a chance to join was already a huge stroke of luck. Suddenly, another mysterious swordsman appeared and criticized the Storm Swords platoon for acting like a bunch of idiots. This swordswoman was a girl who explained to the young master that she was part of the Black Iron Cavalry, who were eager to welcome a hero into their ranks. This girl was the Black Iron Cavalry's second-in-command, a fire goblin named Ayan. Immediately after this girl, several more people eager to recruit Theo joined in. Among them were representatives of the Black Sword platoon, willing to promote Theo to leader after 3 years of service, as well as representatives of the Swords of Law and the Security Bureau. After this, a full-blown squabble broke out between the fire goblin and the others who were hoping to recruit the boy, as they were clearly cutting in front of the line in their desire to secure such a valuable candidate. The hero could only awkwardly watch, knowing the best course of action would be to slip away before these guys started to get on his nerves. But suddenly the lady of the Plum Blossom Palace herself, Dragon Sword Wasp Ragnar, appeared, who, although she understood that many would consider her greedy, decided that a small loss of reputation was not so bad if, thanks to it, she would gain such a talented swordsman. Many immediately became curious about what brought the first wife here, but she calmly explained that, like the others, she had come to see Theo Ragnar again. Around this same time, while the hero was receiving all the applause and recognition, Axion was going crazy with a thirst for revenge, simply killing his sparring partners one by one to release the rage from such humiliation. In order to stop his nephew's anger, Ed himself appeared, but Axion, completely consumed by his rage, decided to attack his own uncle. But this attack was no problem for the Heavenly Dragon, who merely scolded Axion for his pettiness, as he was venting his anger, which clearly led to nothing. Throwing aside his nephew's sword, Ed suggested that he cool his head and come up with a good plan on how they could eliminate the obstacle, and calmly invited his nephew to a conversation in which he would tell him in detail how to turn the second stage into a funeral for Theo Ragnar. The story shifts to the hero. While many were surprised by the appearance of the Plum Blossom Lady, she created a space that isolated her and Theo from the others, so that no one could interrupt their conversation. It became obvious to everyone. If Wasp had resorted to such a serious technique, then most likely she wanted to share her personal fighting techniques with Theo. Afterwards, the two of them found themselves locked in a separate space that stunned the imagination. Looking at it, the hero immediately recognized Lady Plum Blossom's signature technique, which creates a completely isolated space between the inner and outer worlds. Even though he knew the technique in theory, seeing something he had only heard about in real life was truly incredible, and he finally realized how great his popularity was. At this time, Wasp only laughed at the reaction of the young swordsman and the thought that the demon dragon would be furious if he found out that she came here to meet the hero in person. But she wanted to give him a gift, and even the demonic dragon couldn't stop her. The hero was genuinely curious about what kind of gift she was talking about. Wasp calmly drew her sword, explaining along the way that the clan leader's fencing skills were incredibly high. It was like dragonfire falling from the sky, burning everything in its path. But she, his first wife, was different from Kyle. She used countless variations of her sword as she strove for the dragon, which contains unlimited changes in one breath. After demonstrating the technique, she explained that she called it Rain of Heavenly Flowers. It was the first technique to completely lighten and bloom the plum. The hero watched with his mouth open because what he saw was amazing. There were 120 circles and variations in one continuous movement. So the rumors that Osa, in terms of pure fencing, was superior to the clan leader were true. The hero already understood what awaited him if he could use what he saw in one blow, but he doubted that he was worthy of such a gift. Wasp was flattered that the hero actually liked what she demonstrated. Having dispelled her space, she invited Theo to find her after the awakening ceremony was over because she saw potential in him and wanted him to become a new wind in this place. At this point, Wasp disappeared as if she had never been there, and the hero understood that he had received too good an offer, so it would be shameless of him not to show gratitude. Moreover, the boy immediately realized that it wouldn't be easy for him to become Lady Plumbossom's apprentice while simultaneously serving the Dragon Riders. But these were considerations to be addressed after the second stage. Finally, 3 days passed, and the hero set off for the snowy mountains to undergo the second stage of the awakening ceremony. The winter mountains stretched a long way from Theo's home in Snowy to the Demon Sea. Here, the Ragnars have been protecting humanity for 1,000 years from the cursed lands beyond the Great Northern Wall and the Demon Sea, teeming with countless demons. Jackie Ragnar, who was in charge of the second stage, explained that everyone in the future will inherit a similar honor. That's why the Snowy Mountains were chosen as the location for the ceremony's second stage. Because they were still disciples and not ready to go to the Sea of Demons, the area for the second stage was limited to the interior of the mountains. Therefore, they need to be as careful as possible to avoid accidentally wandering into the Sea of Demons. Their task was to defeat the demonic monsters in the Winter Mountains within 15 days. They were also to retrieve the bells that were hung around the demonic monsters' necks. The bells are painted in one of 7 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple. Each one is worth more points than the previous one. Naturally, more expensive bells were tied to more powerful creatures, especially the harder to obtain purple bells. Bells like these were found on monsters that none of the students could defeat, but even fighting for a bell could earn a lot of points. Moreover, each student could choose the hunting method at their own discretion. Whatever they did, their main task was to return with the bells before the end of the exam. The hero understood that these words clearly meant that they could also intercept other people's prey or bells, which could clearly sow the seeds of discord in their ranks. However, this did not surprise the boy, because he knew perfectly well what kind of family he was born into. It was Ragnar's Law of the Jungle. Jackie finally warned that there were totems placed throughout the mountain to ward off the fiends. Within these safe zones, supplies were also buried for them to use as they saw fit. Finally, the second stage of the awakening ceremony began, so Jackie suggested that all the students go hunting. Many understood that since their test would last for 15 days, supplies would be of great importance, so they decided to go for them first, and then to help the young master. Axion also went into battle, remembering his uncle's words and the strict order to act exactly according to his plan. Only then would the Winter Mountains become a grave for Theo. As the hero was about to leave, he was suddenly stopped by Remington, who decided to make sure that Theo really considered him a friend. The problem was that he had been thinking about their friendship for 3 days and realized that he had seen Theo as both a friend and a rival at the same time. Because of this, his desire to reach the level that would truly surpass the young master grew stronger as soon as possible. The hero wasn't sad about the words he heard. He remembered the fight with Remington and understood that they were no different. He knew this feeling well, because he also considered Remington his friend and rival. And the guy's soul felt lighter, because he was afraid that his feelings were one-sided. Afterwards, Remington smiled and explained that he would do his best to surpass the hero in the second stage, and Theo wished him luck. After this, Remington immediately disappeared, and the hero, given that Remington had made him his target, had very exciting feelings. Because now, he had an even greater incentive to become someone truly strong. Finally, having taken out the compass, the hero decided to start searching for the dragon's nest, since this was his primary goal. So, after some time, he found himself on the outskirts of the Winter Mountains. The compass showed he was in the right place, and the needle pointed him downwards. Although there was emptiness all around, the hero even suspected that he might need to dig down to find what the compass had been leading him to all this time. He realized that it had been a mistake not to bring a shovel, as he clearly didn't want to use the white moonlight blade as a tool for digging up snow. But the hero understood that the compass was clearly not going to change its mind, So he took out his sword and with its help dug up not only the snow but also the earth, thereby getting closer to the secret that the compass was hiding from him. Immediately after this, the hero ordered the hidden spies to come out, and although at first no movement was observed, soon 3 guys emerged from the ambush, realizing that they had been quite noisy. They were also worried that they wouldn't be able to defeat Theo, who turned out to be stronger than they thought. They had no choice. The boys were the 3 scoundrels of Mount Van: Hyde, Kao, and Rune. The mountain's scoundrels killed civilians under the guise of random incidents during missions, and such groups thrived on the Ragnar clan's dominant ideology of might makes right. The hero couldn't forget the massacre they had committed in the village of Van while he was working for Black Snow. It was he who had come for their heads. He knew their horrors better than anyone else. Official records indicate 716 dead and 220 missing due to their fault, and none of the bodies could be identified, as all of their heads had been destroyed. The hero assumed that their terrible nature would become an obstacle for him in the future, so he was going to deal with it, and the fact that they decided to leave themselves was just a simplification for him. The hero guessed that Axion could have sent them, but they laughed and explained that they would not obey someone their age. It became obvious that they were sent by someone so high-ranking that the hero would even have a hard time proving his involvement. The obvious customer for him was the head of the council, and all 3 were clearly uneasy about his assumption, not understanding how Theo had managed to recognize them so easily. But he calmly explained that given their words, lineage, and heritage, they were in collusion with someone, and since the person in charge of conducting the tests did not come with them, they were in collusion with someone else. The boys began to worry that the hero's knowledge could lead to significant problems for them in the future. Their leader knew that the guy could already be considered dead. Smiling and taking out his sword, he only laughed, imagining how much pleasure it would give him to break his pretty face, and promised to crush it beyond recognition. But as soon as the hero drew his sword, it immediately became obvious how stupid their words and assumptions were. Using the 3 Dragon Claws technique, the hero completely defeated his enemies. And since the guy didn't want to be like those 3, he decided to do the opposite. Only their heads remained intact, and their bodies were destroyed into small pieces. The guy himself, looking around the scene of such a quick battle, understood that these 3 did not cause him any problems, since they were quite young. Moreover, the rain of heavenly flowers that Lady Plum Blossom demonstrated to him was very helpful. After 3 days of continuous study and practice of this style, he was able to deliver 3 consecutive strikes using circles, and Theo had learned to use various variations and transformations to form curved lines. He was still a long way from the 120 strike series demonstrated by Osa. Finally, the hero only had to get rid of the rest of his enemies and continue to think about how to get underground. But suddenly, when he was about to leave, he saw that light began to come from the cliff where he had just thrown the heads. After the heads fell in, an invisible staircase appeared there, which he had not noticed before, and a system sign suggested that he explore the blue cave. Without thinking twice, the hero immediately went down, glad that he had managed to find a way out without digging the ground with his sword. Around this time, the first results were being read out, and among all those who passed the first stage, Axion took first place, having collected 41 demonic bells in a group of 21 people, and Ray took second place. Julius was interested in how Theo Ragnar was coping, since he had placed big bets on this boy. According to their data, the guy had neither bells nor a command, and they assumed that either the guy was moving stealthily or was lying in ambush. Wasp understood that this assumption meant only one thing. Those responsible for conducting the test could not foresee the final results. Wolfgang took the floor, believing that Theo's excellent performance in the first stage did not mean that he should do well in the second, as his heart might not be ready for a real battle. He laughed, knowing that it was probably because he was only a bastard, and he was glad in his heart that his mercenaries had done their job better than he had expected. Ed immediately noticed the cheerful leader and, using telepathy, expressed hope that the head of the council had nothing to do with Theo's missing results. The head of the council immediately realized that he had forgotten to warn Ed about his plans in advance, but he knew that it didn't matter now since his plan had been successful. Ed sincerely regretted that the old fool had interfered in his war without permission. The problem was complicated by the fact that after Camilla's capture of the palace, he took the opportunity to search the entire palace, but was unable to find the primordial dragon's relic anywhere. So Theo clearly knows where to look for her, and he wanted to find out everything the boy knew before killing him. Contacting one of his assistants, the man demanded that he quickly inform Axion to hurry up with the implementation of the plans. Wasp had clearly noticed that the head of the council and the director of the Central Intelligence Agency were up to something, so she warned Julius that they also needed to be on their guard. Julius was confident that if Theo was faced with something like this, he should be able to handle it on his own, and there was no need to go so far as to interfere with the test to help him. Moreover, he couldn't ignore the fact that Wasp was so interested in Theo, whom he had noticed earlier, that she even met with him in person behind his back. At this time, the hero finally entered the dungeon, where he saw many corpses trying to stretch out their dead hands to him. The hero immediately realized it was a trap, using a powerful mental attack, and most of those caught in it simply broke. However, after passing the White Moonlight Blade trial, he wouldn't be swayed by such things. The only thing that troubled the hero was why the compass socket had led him here. So, touching the walls, he tried to expand his senses to scan the area. Finally, he realized which direction he needed to go and found the baby dragon's lair. He knew that after 3 years, Black Snow was supposed to destroy the dragon cub and take the legendary items it guarded. He apologized in advance to Black Snow, with whom he had collaborated in his past life, and the legendary items would go to him. As soon as the hero entered, his face distorted with amazement, because he realized that this was not the lair of cubs, but the lair of a real ancient dragon. In this case, defeating him for the sake of collecting treasures was practically impossible, which greatly complicated the hero's situation. And although he wanted to get the grimoire, such a clash was guaranteed death for him. The hero was interested in why there was an adult dragon here and not a newly hatched one. He suspected that perhaps Black Snow had deliberately spread misinformation, or that because he had arrived 3 years early, the dragon had not yet had time to leave its cave. In any case, regardless of his assumptions, the hero needed to escape immediately. He knew he'd have to return later, closer to the moment Black Snow discovered this place. But he was out of luck. The dragon had already awakened and, looking calmly at the hero, was surprised that the Chosen One had been absent from this place for so long. This dragon's name was Lobrock. Looking the hero over carefully, she explained that she was the mistress of the Winter Mountains. That's what the Ragnars called her, the Dragon Protector. As soon as the hero realized how great the dragon was in front of him, he immediately knelt down to greet the great ancestor dragon. Lobrock was very surprised by such an address, but Theo only explained that he considered her the other half of their ancestor, Lord Sigurd, and the mother of the second head of the clan. Lobrock was simply surprised to hear the name Freed Life and explained that that damn chatterbox had spread nonsense. And although she and Sigurd were very close, their relationship was that of two mutually respectful sentient beings who had entered into a spiritual bond. There was no romance between them. Besides, she didn't understand how Theo could even comprehend the idea of reproduction between a dragon and a human. At that moment, the hero realized that the stories about dragon blood in their veins were just propaganda, but Lobrock did not agree with such assumptions. After all, through the pact she made with Sigurd, she actually shared her dragon blood with him. At this point, Lobrock decided to stop being polite and fulfill her duty as the dragon protector of the Chosen One. She, in accordance with the original covenant, granted the Chosen One, who had passed the test, the opportunity to ask 3 questions. The hero was clearly relieved that he had not only avoided battle, but was also able to ask questions. After all, his goal was to rise to the top of Clan Ragnar, and to do so, he needed to thoroughly study his clan, and he decided to take this opportunity to gather as much information as possible. Around this time, Axion managed to defeat another monster, from which he obtained a green bell, which he immediately gave to a member of his group. This was already the 57th bell on Axion's account, but Theo didn't have a single one because he was hiding somewhere. Axion's lackey, Orin, assumed that Theo was frightened by the prospect of meeting real fiends, as it was literally impossible to easily defeat a high-class fiend. The only one who could handle this task was Axion himself, who was beyond all reasonable limits. His lackey knew he had to do everything he could to maintain good relations with him, so the boy explained that, despite the hero's strength, he had been the worthless Ragnar for too long, and he would not be able to pass such tests. An enraged Axion began to strangle the boy, realizing how weak he really was, which is why he was so cowardly. After all, a true man of strength is never afraid of anything. That's why all his stories about Theo being scared were nothing more than delusions, because Theo was clearly up to something. At that moment, Axion was distracted by his assistant to deliver a message from the Director of Central Intelligence. The man ordered them to quickly begin implementing the plan, so, throwing away the annoying toy, Axion asked to tell his uncle that there was no point in rushing him. No one wanted the hero's death more than he did, and he would finish off Theo the moment he showed up. At this time, the hero, unaware of the insidious plans, stood and thought about the questions he wanted to ask. Finally, the first question was why Lobrock was imprisoned in this place. She immediately realized that this was a fundamental question, aimed at obtaining as many details as possible, so she praised Theo. Her answer was that the reason lay in the monster that lay beyond the demon sea at the very edge of the world. They called him the Nameless Lord, and for 1,000 years she remained here, bound by duty to protect the world from this monster. The Winter Mountains were merely an outpost. The hero could not believe that he actually saw fear in Lobrock's eyes during this story. The Nameless Overlord, whom Theo had never heard of before, immediately seemed like a truly powerful being, capable of instilling fear in the ancient dragon that had been the overlord of dragons over 1,000 years ago. And now, the hero had many questions left, and he would like to know more about this ruler, but he needed to ask about other things. He wanted to know what Lobrock knew about the primordial dragon's relics. She was surprised by the boy's question, despite the fact that he already possessed 3 relics, and he was probably very lucky to have managed to obtain them. The hero had no idea there were so many relics. The first was in the dungeon of the Camel Palace, the second was the Moonlight Blade, and what the last relic was, the hero could not understand. Lobrock calmly explained that the primordial dragon's relics were a response to the Nameless Overlord's threat. The primordial dragon Fafnir created them by dividing his soul into 31 fragments to protect people. All relics are different from each other. They can be objects, some kind of experience, or even strange phenomena. Finally, the hero realized that the third relic he possessed was a phenomenon that had allowed him to return 10 years to the past. This phenomenon was regression. In other words, the relic itself was himself. Everything began to fall into place. Everything that was happening to him was the primordial dragon's wish. But he was surprised that every relic was protected by a dragon. But in the case of his regression, there was nothing like that. The hero had one last question. He already suspected that his chosen status was the cause of all the strangeness, so he decided to find out why even Lobrock had recognized him as the chosen one. He guessed that his goal was to confront the Nameless Lord, but he was truly too incompetent and weak for such a great mission. Lobrock believed that to answer Theo's question, she had to ask him a counter-question. She couldn't understand why the boy spoke as if he were the only one chosen by the primordial dragon. At that moment, the hero realized the whole truth. Both Axion and the Black Dragon, they all knew about the relics and were trying to collect them. If they were also chosen by the relics, then they could also see the same messages the hero saw. Moreover, they could also be regressors. He was one step closer to the truth of this world, but everything had become vastly more complicated. Since the Nameless Overlord was an entity feared even by an ancient dragon, the likelihood of other regressors' existence greatly increased. Finally, the hero had asked all 3 of his questions, and now that the task was complete, it was time for his reward. The boy remembered that he had come here for Amon's grimoire, but his desire had changed. He wanted to get something greater, something incomparable to anything. The system alert let him know that he could have all the treasures of the primordial dragon for himself. Lobrock explained that her lair was filled with treasures from all corners of the world. Precious stones, elixirs, secret manuscripts, and weapons. Whatever the hero chooses, it will be an item of incredible value. She was ready to give him any one thing that was in her lair, and asked Theo to name what he wanted to receive. But the hero only joyfully declared that he wanted to get Lobrock. The dragoness only laughed, realizing that her fame was timeless, but, referring to the joke, asked the hero to choose a real reward. However, he insisted on his decision. When Lobrock realized this was no joke, she immediately became enraged, using her dragon intimidation on this impudent fellow. She couldn't understand how he had actually tried to seize all her wisdom and treasures. The hero understood that the dragon's intimidation from the dragon protector was not comparable to any pressure he had experienced before, but he had to endure. To do this, he used his intimidation of the lower drake, which at least somehow helped his body. But Lobrock considered this only stupidity. She certainly could not be defeated or resisted by intimidating a lesser drake. The hero, who could barely contain the bleeding that was gushing out all over his body, stated that according to Lobrock, he could take any treasure in the lair, and it was not said that Lobrock herself was not that treasure. And although the hero understood that he was participating in an adventure that could cost him his life, the result was definitely worth it, because Lobrock is a dragon protector who founded the Ragnar clan with the progenitor. There is no more amazing proof of legitimacy than getting close to her, and to prevent the past from repeating itself, the hero could not miss such an opportunity. Therefore, the hero insisted that Lobrock keep the promise given by her divine word and stand by his side. At that moment in this weak boy, Lobrock clearly saw old memories of Sigurd, who had once also come to her. Eventually, he got her consent, and having assumed a female form, she admitted that the guy had managed to interest her, so she agreed to give him a chance. Looking at the hero's expression, she realized that he was struck by her beauty, but she warned him that she was over 2,000 years old. But the hero was actually more interested in the breasts of the great dragon protector. She then explained that she had lost her heart 50 years ago. Since then, she had been patiently awaiting her death, and at best she had 3 years to live. Because of this, she also could not leave her lair. In other words, she was unable to help the hero directly. So she decided to ask him again if he still wanted to choose her as his reward. But his answer remained unchanged. She thought it was a stupid decision, but she knew it was probably commonplace among the elite. The hero promised Lobrock that he would definitely become stronger in order to find more relics of the primordial dragon. He would do this for the dragoness and find something to replace the lost heart. And even the dragoness herself understood that among all the relics, there could definitely be something capable of this. The hero understood that he had to do at least something to be worthy of the title of Close Dragon Protector. Smiling, Lobrock hoped that the hero would take care of her as her new soulmate and warned that she could not leave this place, so until the guy found a solution to her problem, she would be in hibernation. Moreover, she had a request for the hero. In order to form a true soul bond with her, he had to read the book and awaken the gate of the mind. Then he would be able to accomplish this within a month, and there was a variety of food in the vicinity of the lair, so he could devote his time to reading. The hero understood that the item handed to him was Amon's grimoire, and although he was glad that he was able to obtain the grimoire, a month was too time-consuming. She explained that this is exactly how long it takes for the first awakening of the gates of the mind, and did not understand whether the hero had more important things to do than create a soul connection with her. He excitedly explained that he was in the process of going through the second stage of the awakening ceremony. The trial is only 15 days long, and he had less than half a month to complete it, so he asked for an extension to return after completing his trial. And although Lobrock understood that this was possible, she still refused the hero's request because she could have let him go. But that was not interesting. Therefore, she suggested that he cope until the end of the second stage of the test, forbidding him to leave his lair until then. The hero understood that in this case there were 13 days left until the end of the second stage, or 3 on 10 hours if he refused to sleep. Events are moved forward 3 days to the start of the second phase at the Central Intelligence Agency. There, Ed explained to Axion that they were capable of creating a safety zone. It was formed due to the presence of demon summoning marble inside the totems. The increased energy of the monsters locked in the marble prevented other fiends from getting close. However, if this marble is destroyed, the very same fiend that he demonstrated can be summoned at any moment. Ed explained that since the goal of the second stage was to destroy monsters and accumulate points, Theo would be required to hunt monsters. His uncle wanted Axion to lure Theo out using a similar marble. And while Axion was partly right, the important point was that they couldn't simply lure the hero in and kill him. Otherwise, they might miss the clues leading to the Rose Palace relic. The boy didn't understand the problem with getting everything he needed out of Theo before killing him. Ed was disappointed that the boy himself didn't understand the problem. After all, everyone, including him, should have understood that the difference in skill between Axion and Theo was not that great, and it would not be easy to capture him and torture him. However, the hero seemed quite sentimental, so his followers could be used against him. They could have taken any of the weaklings who gathered at the 4th training ground. It will be easier for Axion to take them hostage and then demand information regarding the relic. Then Axion realized his uncle's true intentions. And even though that was the plan, he couldn't have imagined that instead of hunting, Theo would hide and reappear only just before the end of the challenge. The remaining time was only 12 hours, and so far he had taken first place with 860 points. Axion wondered why Theo was simply wasting his time, although they even stabbed several of his uncle's men who were observing the exam. One of Axion's assistants even thought that perhaps one of the trios sent by the head of the council had caught Theo. Otherwise, there was no explanation why he had not yet shown up. The guy who came up with this idea was a swordsman, a disciple of the Plum Blossom Palace, who had placed 7th in the second stage. Axion was extremely irritated that such a talent from the Plum Blossom Palace had such disgusting insight. It wasn't strange why the people of Plum Blossom Palace were so interested in Theo, with their way of thinking. After such a remark, the guy was insulted because all this time he was trying to help Axion catch Theo, and he still dared to mock him. In any case, Axion stopped wasting his time and, realizing that Theo did not want to show up, decided to do everything possible to force him to do so. He addressed the pure dragon scale community and the Plum Blossom Palace and announced that the hunting season had already begun, and they would be killing the scum from the 4th training ground until Theo showed up. Ray, who took 3rd place in the 2nd stage, managed to overhear all of this. At this time, Theo's followers were able to kill the ice lizard, a mid-class monster, and obtained a yellow bell from it. At this point, Sybil was ranked 68th. Eode managed to take 53rd place with 52 points, and Band was 62nd. What still worried Sybil was that there were only 12 hours left until the end of the 2nd stage, and the young gentleman was still nowhere to be seen. But Eode was sure that Theo was busy with much more global things, and he clearly had more important things to do than just score points for the exam. Sybil understood this too, since the main condition was survival, and placement was irrelevant. Still, Eodis would have been happy to see the young master take 1st place again. But suddenly at that moment, Sybil's body was unexpectedly struck by a piercing attack in the chest from Orin. Eode didn't understand what this meant at all and how they should perceive such a gesture from the pure dragon scale community. The boys calmly explained that they were merely sacrificial lambs with which they intended to summon the master, as they wanted to see Theo as soon as possible. At the same time, the hero finally managed to open the gates of the mind in just less than half a month. Lobrock was only glad that the information he heard in his past life turned out to be correct. The most important factor in studying the Grimoire of Amun was the quantity and quality of magical power. Since he had both the Monohol and the Dragon Heart, it was only natural that he learned twice as fast as ordinary people. But since the hero's stats were too low, a low-level skill called Cub Synchronization was developed. This is free manipulation and reading of thoughts remaining on objects through psychokinesis. Lobrock realized that this was already enough for her to acknowledge Theo as her close one. Now that he'd mastered the basics, he'd have to figure out the rest himself through practice. Once he'd mastered the technique well enough, he'd be able to hear her voice too. Moreover, he will also be able to borrow her power, an incredible opportunity for a hero that he could not even dream of. But Lobrock warned that for the sake of her strength, her recovery must be his priority, and reminded her that she had 3 years left at best. The hero promised that he would definitely cope, and satisfied with the words spoken and the work done, Lobrock decided to complete all the preparations. After this, she cast a spell on the hero, thereby declaring the fulfillment of the primordial testament. She will wait for their next meeting and hope for the success of her new loved one, who appeared for the first time in 1,000 years. Immediately after this, the hero was able to exit the cave, happy that he had managed to conclude this deal, but he had not achieved any results regarding the awakening ceremony. Plus, there were only 12 hours left, so he had to catch up with the other participants in such a short period of time. If he hunts fiends in the usual way now, he won't take 1st place. Therefore, there was only one strategy left: stealing bells from others. And since the hero knew that Axion had taken 1st place in his past life, the results certainly wouldn't change much this time. In other words, the hero only needed to defeat Axion to take 1st place, although even defeating him would be quite difficult. Suddenly turning around, the hero saw a badly maimed and bloodied Ray, who had been looking for him all this time. The guy immediately came up to find out what happened to her and what kind of fiend did something like this to her, because he knew that she was quite a strong fighter. But then he saw that there was a wound on her chest made by a sword, so no fiend could have left such a wound. She explained that she could tell him everything later. Now he needed to go west. But Ray couldn't say anything else and lost consciousness in the hero's arms. He was then able to read the remaining thoughts on the sword through the use of child synchronization and began to absorb the memories of the sword's owner. In the vision, Ray was sitting in ambush, eavesdropping on the hunters. They had already dealt with Theo's followers, so they expected him to appear at any moment. They also left numerous traces on the 4th training ground and set traps to corner the hero. Looking over the work done, Axion did not understand these people because there were too many of them, and even a couple of live hostages would have been quite enough. So he decided to get rid of them. At that moment, Ray came to their defense, warning Axion that he had long since crossed all boundaries. But the boy warned her that she should leave and stay out of other people's troubles. When Ray insisted on freeing Theo's comrades, Axion realized that she too had joined such a lowlife. After that, the fight could no longer be avoided. The last thing the hero saw in his memories was how they fought, and how Ray was ultimately wounded by such a monster. Because the hero's stats were too low, he couldn't read any more memories. Having barely recovered the girl, he tried to find out what was going on and why Axion had been so desperate to grab him from the very beginning. But since he was nowhere to be found, he decided to take his friends hostage. This news literally turned the hero's world upside down. As it turned out, Ray had been desperately coming here all this time to warn the hero about this, and he was incredibly angry because of everything that Ed and Axion had already managed to do. He realized that these people would not leave him alone in his current life either. But he was no longer the same person who was used to falling on his back, so he began asking Ray where that worthless Axion was. Finally, after a long time, Axion's subordinates found Theo on the northern slope. They were completely sure that it was him. Besides, he had spoken with Ray Ragnar, and therefore, most likely, he would come to them soon. Then Axion realized that this was a great opportunity. He could finally prove to everyone that such a worthless person could never surpass him. But suddenly, an unknown person contacted the guy via telepathy, reminding him that they had no reason to directly confront him. They only needed to learn about the relics, after which they would take care of his murder themselves. Then Axion declared that he certainly had no reason to worry because he would use the summoning marble to distract the observers, and his stronger comrades would do the rest. As it turned out, Ray tried to dissuade Theo until the very end, because she understood that if he went to Axion, he would definitely kill him. Besides, she knew that people from the Central Intelligence Agency were somehow involved in this, and he wouldn't be able to defeat them. She knew that this was no longer just a competition and a test, but a real massacre, and they had set a trap specifically to kill the hero so he could not go there alone. She suggested calling the examiners to help, but the guy understood that they simply didn't have time for that. Therefore, he thanked her for her help, but still decided to follow her there to save the hostages, because no one knows what Axion can do to them, especially knowing his character. Even so, Ray couldn't understand how a hero could be so foolish, since he would certainly die if he went there. She saw no point in dying here and now. It would be far easier to act more cautiously than to lose his head in an unequal battle, especially for the sake of several people. But the hero sternly stopped the girl and reminded her that he didn't want to lose any of his people, at least not again. The hero knew that their goal was for everyone to get through the second stage alive. He had made such a promise to his people, and he could not go back on it. After all, they were all supposed to gather at the bar again to celebrate their victory. In the end, no matter how hard Ray tried to get through to the guy, he only calmly stopped her, explaining that she herself had not remained indifferent. Recalling all of his past, all of his weakness, and all of the losses that came with it, he explained that he no longer wanted to be on the losing side like a worthless fool, so he definitely would not agree to repeat his past mistakes. So, with all his sternness, he looked at Ray again and asked her to tell him exactly where Axion was. Shortly after, Remington, along with 2 other of the 4 cardinals, discovered supplies collected by some of the participants, as well as discarded bells and blood, which meant that something had definitely gone wrong. Although Remington knew that Hulkus and Erica likely had no particular desire to deal with this, he still asked for their help in sorting out this situation, which clearly went beyond the scope of a simple test and could have serious consequences for everyone involved. Soon after this conversation, the hero was already heading to help his friends. On his way, as luck would have it, he encountered many monsters, but the hero did not have time to fight them, so as soon as he killed them, he did not even bother to collect the bells that fell from them and immediately ran away. He knew that Sybil and the other hostages were most likely safe, since Axion was most likely controlled by none other than Ed. He probably planned everything so that he could quietly kill only the hero himself. The inspectors from the Bureau, who were on duty with Axion, were proof of this. When 5 more monsters attacked the hero, he simply used the skill 3 Dragon Claws on them, and having dealt with them in an instant moved on. Thinking about the inspectors stationed there to kill him, he realized that these people would certainly be monitoring Axion's actions, so he would definitely not create any unnecessary noise. And yet, the hero needed to act quickly because Axion was indeed an unpredictable variable, but thanks to this unpredictability, the hero would certainly be able to catch him. At that moment, Ray looked in the direction Theo had gone and realized that it had been a stupid decision to try to dissuade him, because he had been like that since childhood from the very first time they met. Remembering her past when he helped her as a child, she decided that she should repay him somehow, so this time she will help him. Somewhere around this time, while Sybil was trying with all his might to resist and somehow get out, Axion approached him and with a strong kick to the face, trampled the guy into the ground, after which he began to take out his katana and reminded him that he promised to kill him if he did not shut up. But at that moment, observers contacted the guy via telepathy and asked him not to forget the instructions of the bureau director, as he should not create unnecessary noise. So the guy had to stop his attempts at unintentional execution, after which the only thing he could do was just sit back and wait for his main target to appear. Besides, the boy understood that the 4 senior inspectors of the bureau stationed to kill the hero should be quite enough, but he did not understand why in the end his uncle decided to give others the right to kill such a pathetic bastard. Finally, Theo himself appeared before everyone, and his friends were truly worried to see the hero, as they were worried about what might happen to him after meeting Axion and his people. Finally, Axion also noticed Theo's appearance, so he greeted the finally arrived and belated Theo Ragnar. The hero paid no attention to the words of such a monster, and instead, all his attention was focused on his beaten people. He then turned his gaze to Axion's accomplices and Axion himself, who had been sitting all this time on his first follower, Sibyl, as if on a throne. Axion was disappointed that the hero was keeping him waiting, but the boy was more concerned about Sibyl's appearance, which appeared to be incredibly exhausted and had lost so much blood that he could even die. This infuriated the hero so much that his claws began to grow out of frustration. At the moment when Axion saw the hero's hostility, he was about to take out his weapon, but he was immediately stopped by the guards. So, realizing his situation, Axion calmly explained that since the hero was probably aware of the whole situation, he suggested that they get straight to the point. If Theo really wanted to save his friends, then he had to do something. But the hero did not understand why Axion suddenly started negotiations, as if he was scared. Axion was angered by such arrogant words, so he asked the hero what he meant, giving him a chance to justify himself. But Theo, with a haughty smile, decided to ask whether Axion was afraid that he might lose to him. This only further angered the guy, who didn't understand what was being discussed, but the hero couldn't explain the situation any other way. Such a pathetic hostage-taking, the glaring glances aimed only at him. Besides, he assumed Axion had done all this simply out of fear. This was clearly a great disgrace for the strongest in the Northern 4th District. If Theo had been mistaken in his words, then Axion could simply fight him in a fair duel, Ragnar style, and Theo hoped he would accept his offer if Axion had any pride left. After all, this was the only way they could resolve their conflict with dignity, as befits true warriors of Clan Ragnar. The hero promised that if he lost, he would give up his head and whatever Axion desired, and if he won, the hostages would be released. But Axion could hardly contain his laughter at such a proposal. After all, some worthless Ragnar was challenging him to a duel, and his insolence clearly knew no bounds. Literally shaking with rage, Axion wanted only one answer. Did Theo truly think he was afraid of him? At that moment, they tried to warn the boy with telekinesis not to fall for such a provocation, as it would ruin their plan from the start. But Axion immediately ordered them to remain silent, as he no longer intended to tolerate such humiliation, and decided to accept the protagonist's challenge. At that moment, all the mercenaries gathered in the distance realized that everything had gone wrong and were unsure what to do now that the situation had spiraled out of control. After all, if Mr. Axion started losing, they would have to act according to plan, and perhaps their actions would be exposed. At that moment, Axion explained that since this was a duel between the proud Ragnars, no one was to interfere until it was over, including the hostages, until Theo was finally defeated. After that, the two clashed. Theo launched the first attack, and Axion barely managed to stop it with his reaction. After the attack, the hero merely thanked Axion for not wasting any more time. After that, they engaged in a serious battle, with Theo leading the charge. Even Axion was amazed by the way he tried to dodge an attack, but he warned that the hero would never win. Using the Heavenly Dragon skill, he decided to show Theo what the true strength of the Ragnars was, and not the pitiful remnants that remained with the bastard. Although this attack initially frightened Theo, he regained his composure in time and decided to counterattack, dispelling the technique with his 3 dragon claws. Ultimately, the technique was completely destroyed and cut into tiny pieces. And while Axion was shocked and unable to understand what kind of tricks Theo had used, the hero simply calmly asked if the boy had enough strength to teach him. Watching this, Hanabi, an officer of the Church Order of Dragons who placed 14th in the second stage, was literally amazed. After the first awakening ceremony, he doubted Theo's actions, but now he realized that he really was insanely strong. This was becoming a serious problem, since Axion could even lose to him. So the boy was thinking about betraying Axion and siding with Theo before it was too late. After what he saw, He realized that Axion was the only one who was confident. But the only thing that kept him from betraying them was that the Bureau's inspectors were still on their side, meaning they would sort out all the problems. All he needed was to distract the rest of the observers, so he turned around and ordered the entire Dragon Order to disperse and not interfere, relying entirely on Axion's strength. The story shifts back many years to when Axion was still a very young boy. Ed and his mother, Aimila, encouraged the boy to be the one to take Ragnar's throne for the sake of his mother and his uncle, so that Clan Troyven would have everything. After all, the name Ragnar was just an empty shell. He was actually Troyven, and he must not forget it. After these memories, the battle became even more intense. But no matter how hard Axion tried and gave it his all, Theo could still dodge his attacks with a smile. The hero realized he was extremely lucky because Axion actually acted exactly as he expected, making his job easier. Soon, everyone was informed that Theo Ragnar had finally shown up and that he had met with Axion. This greatly pleased Julius, because if the boy had shown up, he was safe and unharmed. The head of the council was irritated that the thugs he'd hired had failed to complete the task. Even Ed breathed a sigh of relief, because he understood that if the guy was alive, then he could calm down, and although it was unclear why he had been busy all this time, now everything would go according to his plan. After his nephew finds the key to the relic, he will be killed or beheaded. But suddenly, a new report came in that Theo and Axion Ragnar had engaged in combat. This completely contradicted Ed's plans and clearly frightened him greatly. At this moment, while continuing to fight with an opponent who had also mastered the technique of a mage swordsman's movements, Axion finally realized how strong the opponent was. His progress was truly commendable, but even so, he believed the boy wasn't strong enough to defeat him. At one point, he managed to read his movements and prepared to attack, throwing his katana straight at the hero's face. This truly frightened the boy, who noticed for the first time that his opponent was using dual blades. Moreover, this blade throw reminded him of the past, in which a similar throw had ended his life. Without waiting for the result of his attack, Axion only explained that magical fencing with a predetermined formula easily shows the enemy the next move. But Theo was able to easily stop this throw with his bare hands and finally realized who that very enemy from his past life was. Then the man ordered Randall to stop talking and end the showdown. Theo didn't see the continuation, as he was dead, but after his death, Axion finally removed his bandage from his face and suggested that Randall finish what they hadn't started and finally turn the Rose Palace around. Now, the hero has no reason left to spare the bastard who completely destroyed his past life. After all, on the day of the hero's death, he was destined to simply leave this world, never knowing who burned the Rose Labyrinth. He was powerless, but fortunately, Randall took off his mask and revealed himself. And thanks to Evelina's investigation, they discovered that he was closely connected to the Troyvens and the Camellia Palace. Then it was logical to assume that he also died at the hands of one of the Troyvens. In their clan, there was only one person who could fight with dual blades at once, Axion Ragnar. Only an arrogant bastard like him wouldn't worry about losing a weapon during a fight. But all this time, the hero wasn't entirely sure until he saw his technique with his own eyes. Now he had no doubts left, so, having crushed the blade with his own hands, the hero decided to ask the guy why he so longed for his death. However, the answer did not interest him because in this life everything would be different. Both he and his comrades, they would all survive. With these thoughts in mind, the hero charged into battle. But after reading his trajectory, Axion clearly noticed that the boy was clearly aiming somewhere wrong. It was just a pathetic parody of his weapon-throwing attack, but the hero knew better. After which he spread his power. His aura filled the entire battlefield, and he felt a wild thirst for blood. It was far from ordinary, so it became obvious that Theo had been hiding his power all this time, even during their duel. Moreover, having gotten close enough to the guy, Theo went into a close attack, no longer held back by anything. Armed with his new blade, he gained even greater power, leaving him with no chance of losing. The only thing Theo was wondering was when Axion would finally show him Ragnar's true strength. Seriously angered by this remark, Axion grabbed the boy's arm tightly and raised his blade to pierce his face. But just when it seemed impossible to escape, the hero managed to dodge the blow just in time, causing it to only graze his shoulder, after which the two swordsmen again met in a duel. And finally, the hero managed to knock the sword out of the enemy's hands. The last thing he wanted to know from Axion was if he knew what it felt like to be pierced through with a sword, after which he attacked the guy himself, aiming straight for his chest.